George, you're on mute. Craig Larson.
Here.
Doris Graham here.
Thanks, Doris.
You're
Mary,
welcome.
Here.
Kevin and Martin.
Here.
Okay, we'll go to the scheduling of efficiencies.
Hi, this is Julie Fickus. And Muha, can you allow me to present, please?
You're fine now. There we go.
Sorry for the delay. There you go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chair Ross, members of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Pittman, faculty, staff, and guests. I want to thank you for allowing us to provide these updates for you. I'll begin with a brief update of the work of the FAST team, and then we'll discuss the groundwork that is being done for guided pathways with work completed by the Scheduling Efficiencies Committee. And then Dr. Moore Davis is going to conclude this presentation with an update of the guided pathways work. So to start off, the fall academic and safety team, the FAST team, was busy beginning in the end of the spring term, and they were formed at that point in time. Sorry, my notes are covered up. And they were formed to essentially establish safety protocols so that classes could be conducted on campus. As you recall, in the spring, we did move all of our coursework at the end of the term into a virtual format. And then throughout the summer, that virtual format was maintained. This committee worked very hard, very fast to develop guidelines that would allow us to put the coursework on campus that needed to be conducted on campus and provide for a safe environment while we were doing that. So they did a great job. Those guidelines have actually been able to provide for safety through the entire process, and we were able to have a lot of flexibility based on the guidelines, so that as the pandemic ebbs and flows, we've been able to maintain a safe environment. We've also minimized the number of cases of the virus that have a nexus to the campus when classes are meeting face-to-face. And this has helped the campus presidents as we try to find locations on campus so that we can maximize our resources as we go into spring, maintaining our social distancing and providing as many students an opportunity to attend classes on campus that want to. So some of the things that we've learned through the pandemic and through the work that the FAST team has done is that our efforts allowed us to maintain scheduling as we moved forward. We really only had one extremely hard semester that we had to change midstream, and that was our fall 2020 semester. We learned that there can never be enough communication in the process. And we've learned that we can maintain a safe environment for our students, faculty, and staff, even in the midst of a pandemic. We've automated a significant number of processes that have removed barriers for students. Two of them that we're especially proud of are the substitution waiver process, which is a process where students can substitute courses or waive courses in a program. Often that was a piece of paper that was passed from person to person. And so that has been sped up incredibly through automating the process, and students therefore can get that done much more quickly. We also, and this is a really exciting automation, is we automated the admissions process for the nursing students. So now they receive an automated message saying, hey, you've been accepted into one of the campus nursing programs. All you have to do is click to accept. So another barrier that has been removed through this process. We also learned we can adapt to the changing environment pretty easily by the way that we've scheduled the classes, so that we can either allow more students on campus or pull them into a virtual environment as needed without completely changing their schedules. The mandatory faculty training for online teaching was a very important resource that we offered to faculty, and it did ensure a smoother transition into that virtual world. And we were able to also come up with some efficiencies with academic success in tutoring, because there were times when we would have a specialized tutor on a particular campus, but only that campus would have access to that resource easily. Otherwise, a student would have to travel to the campus to get that resource. Now those resources are online and students have much more access to these resources. So we're very proud of that as well. We do realize that we have significant need for face-to-face teaching. We also recognize that social distancing requirements and our faculty resource limitations do constrict this. We continue to work through that. So that's just a little bit of an update about where we are with scheduling from the FAST team. But let me introduce you to the Scheduling Efficiencies Committee's work. This Scheduling Efficiencies team was born out of the Budget Response team so that they could look at ways to make the schedule much more efficient, so that we might see some budget savings. In order to do this work, the committee did a review of literature for best practices. We examined our current practices, and we also surveyed our current students. As Dr. Moore Davis and I have been working together, we wanted to just kind of outline what some of the objectives are for creating scheduling efficiencies beyond the budgetary responses, and that is to create scheduling processes to increase student retention and completion and reduce bottlenecks and barriers. And upon implementation of guided pathways, to plan and execute course schedules that reduce redundancy or student confusion in completing a certificate or degree at the college. And certainly we want to align with the strategic guiding documents of the college, and we do that by creating a premier student experience through removing barriers to success and providing an academic experience that's designed to prepare students for success in their chosen field of study, by making data-informed decisions about scheduling to improve student course success, and by deriving a schedule and course cancellation process that really puts students first. Just a little trip down memory lane, because not everybody may remember where we've come from, and it's good to see where we've been to understand how far we've already come. And so to start off with, we began with very, very siloed scheduling processes where an individual department might look at their schedule, use historical data, and then make some decisions based on the rolled schedule and that historical data. And so we had random start times, we had random seat times, we had individual campus final exam schedules. So if a student were taking classes on different campuses, they may have conflicting final exams. And then, of course, all of this created some scheduling bottlenecks. We did have the Universal Schedule Task Force, and they have reported to you in the past. We're grateful for the work that they've done. And so what they have done has brought us to where we are currently. We have standardized scheduling patterns and start times across the district. We have 12-week template block schedule design for students. We have a universal final exam schedule. And we've hired an associate registrar to help with that schedule development process, so it's very uniform across the district. And we have a centralized online schedule at this point in time. So we're grateful for the work that that Universal Scheduling Task Force has done so that we can build on the work that they've done. And why scheduling is so complex is because we have a course schedule with over 3,000 classes. We have more than 80 programs that may share some of these classes. We have 4 campuses, an online campus, and 2 educational centers that we have to think about as we schedule. And then we throw in our students who have very intricate needs for timing of classes and modalities. And all of this makes this work incredibly complex. As we look at some of the things that may be potential costs in the future to help us alleviate some of these complexities, one of those things that we may have to look at in the future is potentially a higher education scheduling consulting firm. They do have these, and they do have solutions to deal with these very complex schedules. But as we increase our scheduling efficiency, some of the things that we're going to see that scheduling will be focused on student completion. We should have fewer classes that are underfilled. We should have an ability to more easily increase schedule offerings based on demand because we won't be using our resources in underfilled sections. And then all of this scheduling efficiency should provide a groundwork for guided pathways. So what are we going to do? The things that we are working on right now as we intend to build on the work of the Universal Scheduling Committee is to pilot an LVL centralized schedule for the fall, because as we move more courses back onto the campuses, it's going to be imperative that anything that we have in a virtual environment is centralized and very well planned, because we don't need to have redundancies. We're also going to pilot preset schedules for targeted student populations. So what a preset schedule would look like maybe for developmental ed students initially would be, we would give them a schedule that says, here are the classes that you're going to, you can take. You have the ability to opt out of this if this doesn't work for you, or we can have another discussion if we need to rethink this, but it really tells them what they need right at that moment so that they can make an informed decision about their coursework. For us, it provides some data, because really the data that we use to schedule right now is all historical data. And so this would be a little bit more real-time data. We know how many dev ed students we have. We know what courses we would want to plan, and that would give us some real data to be able to build these courses into the schedule. And then as we move towards guided pathways, this certainly will be able to be done with the different pathways. We also intend to use some of the metrics that the scheduling efficiencies team discovered or looked at more heavily in their research and use those for schedule building. We'll keep doing that and refining those metrics as we go. We will also develop an 8-week accelerated evening and weekend programming schedule, which will allow us to, again, have an idea of the number of sections we need for that programming, because that programming will be sequential. And of course, finally, we may need to investigate a scheduling software and consulting services company. The proposed timeline, we have a lot of work to do for fall. It's going to be done very immediately. So we have the centralized LVL pilot. That work has to be completed in the next week or two in order to have a fall schedule ready. We also have to begin working on the process for the preset schedules for dev ed students so that we can roll that out in time for enrollment. And then, of course, the 8-week accelerated programming would have to be on the fall schedule as well, so that work will begin immediately. Spring of 22, we'll use more refined metrics when we roll the schedule. So that'll help with creating some efficiencies. And then we want to centralize our waitlisting process. So that'll help move students around into courses and know which courses we need to add a little bit more quickly. And then we do know that we have Degree Works and Banner 9 that are going to be implemented in the next year. Degree Works and Banner 9 working together should help us to be more forward thinking, because we should be able to start adding student pathways into the software. And it will tell us then how many students do we have that need English 101, things like that, instead of using historical data, which really just isn't quite as accurate. And then, of course, moving forward, if we need the consultants work, we certainly would like to implement that fairly quickly as well by fall of 2022. So how will we do some of this work? Well, the centralized LVL scheduling, the presidents and registrar will look at data and develop the pilot schedule. And then we'll have the dean staff, and then certainly the registrar will be reviewing this to make sure that if we need additional sections added, we can do that. Or if we need to cancel sections that have no enrollment, we can do that as well. The preset schedules for students, again, the registrar is going to be pretty busy here, you can see. And the interim vice president of student success will also be working with us from the student affairs side of the house to develop the process for providing students these schedules. We'll have to train our advisors. And then certainly we want to have that rolled out in March. Metrics, we're going to begin applying metrics that were recommended by the Scheduling Efficiencies Committee, develop regular checkpoints each semester for review, and then develop a centralized process for the waitlisting that I mentioned earlier. And of course, utilizing that more forward-looking data when that becomes available. The 8-week accelerated planning, we certainly want to have the campus presidents use data to figure out which programs would be best targeted. And then we will have them in both an LVL and a face-to-face format. So the LVL will be more of a district-wide look at the programming, and the face-to-face, of course, will be campus-based. And then as we begin marching down the tracks further with scheduling, we certainly want to look into whether we will need to have even more efficiencies built into the schedule. Is it going to be needed as we implement guided pathways? And we may need to investigate that scheduling consulting group and see if there are ways that we can gain even more efficiencies as we move towards guided pathways. We will be assessing this work. We'll be using our class fill rates and our number of sections. Certainly we'd like to see our classes fill more and the number of sections be less with more full sections. We can also use student satisfaction inventory data. We want to reduce the gap between the importance and the satisfaction numbers. And the questions we can use on that survey are: classes are scheduled at times that are convenient for me. I'm able to register for classes I need with few conflicts. Policies and procedures regarding registration and course selection are clear and well publicized. We felt that those questions would be the best questions to gain some student evaluation. And so what all of this does is it leads us to building the foundation for guided pathways. And so at this point, I'll turn the talk over to Dr. Davis, and she'll describe how this work fits in with guided pathways.
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, Board of Trustees and our guest. The college has really been doing an extraordinary work to reform our schedule practice to become more increasingly student-centered. But the key, in my opinion, to transforming the scheduling process is going to be guided pathways. The heart of guided pathways is the creation of clear and coherent and structured college-level programs of study that are aligned with requirements for success in employment and or the next stage of their education. The 4 pillars of guided pathways include connecting and clarifying paths to student goals, helping students to choose that path, helping them to stay and finish that path, and ensuring that learning occurs. As far as scheduling is concerned and moving to student-centered scheduling, guided pathways 2 pillars are directly aligned with our goals, helping students choose and enter a path, helping students stay on the path. We cannot do that without efficient scheduling. There are 2 things that are going to come together to help us to actually reach our goals to be student-centered. The 2 foundational projects will converge to create a better student experience. One is the creation of seamless paths to credential or degree by using DegreeWorks. Dr. Fick has actually mentioned DegreeWorks previously. However, this new software, it has a plan ahead feature, as well as projected registration features, which allows us to map out the student's academic journey and allows us to have reports of which classes, even days and times that students are selecting to plan their schedules. This will help us to right-size our schedule, to decrease unfilled classes, and ensure optimal offerings at optimal times that students want those schedules. Guided Pathways, on the other hand, will begin its work with 2 things, meta majors and student program maps, because whatever software you have, really the efficiency of that software is dependent upon what information you put into it. So we need to develop clear program maps. And of course, the first step is meta majors. First, we will begin to align our programs along meta majors, and these are career clusters, which I'm sure you're familiar with. These meta majors align with the job market and our student academic majors. There are several significant benefits for us having meta majors on at STLCC. One, that we know that a large portion of our students are undecided. And even though we want to encourage them to choose a major, oftentimes when they walk through our doors, they really don't have one. With a meta major, we can decrease the amount of time that a student may be taking excess credits by having them in a particular cluster of classes or programs that they may be interested in. So one of the things that meta majors will do is to help us to align our career services with student goals. With meta majors, a student doesn't have to declare a major immediately. I know sometimes our student affairs folks may be shaking their heads, but the reality is that many of our students just don't know what they want to do. But if we put them in the right cluster, they don't lose time, they don't lose effort, and they don't lose money by choosing a particular path. They also, with the meta majors, students are less likely taking unnecessary credits. It facilitates student course planning and scheduling. There's less uncertainty about requirements for completion. Students know what they need to take in the next semester, actually for the next 2 years that they will be here. And for the part-time student, we know the average time to graduation is approximately 4 years. So we can map those out for students so they will know exactly what they need to take and when they need to take it. We also, with the meta major, can have an intentional exploration of careers and opportunities, which opens the door to internships, which opens the door to industry project planning. It opens the door to us having more high impact practices within our classrooms. And then last but not least, the course choices are actually informed and they are clear. Students know which of the 50 humanities classes they should be taking and when they should be taking. And I believe that in the end, what we'll see is that we will have higher rates of course completion and graduation, because at the heart of guided pathways is clear and coherent program maps. Secondly, are those program maps. For program maps to actually be efficient and effective. We need to build general education and CTE programs for completion, or your career and technical education programs. These program maps will include prerequisites. We will remove or we will make visible the hidden prerequisites. The reality is that sometimes in many of our courses, there are hidden prerequisites, things you have to take before you can get into a course. What a program map will do is that it will allow the student to be able to see exactly what they need to take and the time to get there. We will also be looking at rebranding and redesigning what we are calling our RAPs right now. We're going to move into academic plans or program mapping. We're also going to include on those program maps, include success milestones. When do you need to see an advisor? At 15 hours, what should you be declaring a major? All of these things should be lined out on a program map such that the student has no doubt as far as what's the next step that they need to make. These maps also will include resources. Academic success and tutoring is very important that a student is connected to the resources on their path. But also what a program map will allow us to do in connection with degree works is that we'll be able to monitor the students' progress toward their degree, which is very important. We need to know where the students are, where they're dropping out, and this will help us to help them to reach their goals. And we also need to create part-time student maps for completion. We have 70% of our students that are part-time. We cannot keep creating program maps that only speak to a full-time student. They must also speak to the part-time student. We know the research tells us that if a part-time student takes one more class, they're more likely to graduate. And if we can get a student to see that it's going to take me 5.5 years to get a 2-year degree, in a lot of cases, that in itself speaks volumes to a student to facilitate them taking that one more class. And with all of our efforts with Take One on Us, these will actually help to facilitate that student progress toward their degree. The guided pathways timeline, we are going to move rather aggressively in the next few months. And we're going to move aggressively because some of the work has already been done. There's work that has been done previously on meta majors. We'll be facilitating that and doing additional research because it's not just about grouping classes, it's also about grouping the services necessary as we begin to cluster those particular programs together. It may also facilitate us structuring ourselves differently so that students can find the resources they need when they need them. So we will begin the work this month, as a matter of fact. We will begin to finalize our meta major recommendations and bring those to the chancellor and to the board, to our leadership team to review, as well as our academic partners. We will present these recommendations for approval, hopefully by May, and then we will begin a mapping process. The mapping process that will begin with our career and technical education programs. Those programs are pretty well mapped right now, except they, when it comes to the general education elements of it. Sometimes the recommendations, the research only recommends that you give a student about 7 choices. After 7 choices for a particular area, the student actually begins to get a bit confused. So we're going to have those informed by faculty, the experts in those areas, as to which courses will make you more likely to be successful. And those will all be on the program map. Of course, the student is not tied to the map, but the student will have accurate information as far as what you need to take to be successful. Because many of our students are asking their friends, their loved ones, in-laws, and outlaws as far as which courses they need to take. And we need to make sure that we're giving students the information that they need to make an informed decision. So I'm hoping that we will begin our first rollout of our program maps by fall 2021. We're going to start probably with our information technology programs and move further from there with our other CTE programs. So we're going to be moving quite aggressively as we go through the process. In order for this process to truly be to meet our expectations, we will need to invest in a technology solution that has increased analytic capacity. Because one of the things that we cannot continue to do is to support developing our schedules by hand. It simply is not responsive and is not getting the students what they need when they need it. So we require the capacity to help students on the path through a solution that supports registration and the scheduling process. So we're investing in degree works, as we have mentioned, but our processes also have to be tied to the student's plan so that the student can only register for the courses on their plan for the next semester. And then the software has to be configured so that we know when the student has deviated from the plan. And then we need the capacity to run reports based on the student plans and to be able to predict course and section demand. That's where the key comes in for guided pathways and degree works coming together, because we'll now have some predictive ability to determine our section and our course demands. Now, this is going to transform the way that we build that schedule, because there is now going to be increased collaboration between our deans, department chairs, program coordinators, schedulers, student affairs, and academic affairs. We're going to come together as a village to build that student schedule. And this also brings about accountability. So that institutional data that we're bringing in will also support us being more accountable to each other for that student's journey through St. Louis Community College. And I believe that's the end of our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have or any discussion points that you would like us to elaborate.
I have a couple of questions about, Julie, I don't expect you to answer these, it's just more thoughts. Since we had an accelerated weekend and evening program, and now we're starting a new one, the question, and again, I don't expect you to answer them, I'm just giving you thoughts. How you're determining if a student can be successful in an 8-week program, what measurements might put a student in that program so they can be successful versus one who might not. How are you choosing your instructors? How are you determining the coursework and how you evaluate competencies and completion with other standard classes? You know, how do you evaluate that students are getting the same amount of information, or at least skills that are in the syllabus? I think my experience has been that it's really good to have 8-week programs and accelerated programs for those students who can do it. But it takes a specific analyzation of the instructors and the students to kind of look forward to them being successful in something that may be difficult or that they're doing along with a work or family schedule. So these are just things to think about. And I'm sure you do. I just wanted to bring them up in the meeting.
Thank you very much.
And I guess while I'm talking, the only other thing, Felicia, is guided pathways are terrific. I mean, I think they're the only way to go. I really cannot encourage enough the work you're doing on guided pathways. It helps advisors, it helps students, it helps programming, and we have been doing a good deal of that, and I'm sure we still are. But I can't encourage enough this kind of work, because students flounder and they get lost, and if they don't have a straight, direct idea of where they're headed, they don't go there. So I really do appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Pam, if I may, have a couple of questions or statements. Okay. Well, thank you for the update. Certainly, I know this has been in the works for some time. I remember the last time the board got a presentation, we maybe pushed back, particularly I know I had some comments to say. So I appreciate us getting to a place that I feel like we are listening and responding. And certainly, I know if I recall the conversation last time, Dr. Larson really pushed us to think about student voice and student survey data. And I know that survey was sent out. So I'm hopeful that that information is being useful and being found in here. First question is, who's on this scheduling efficiency committee?
It was a group of faculty and different managers from across different silos. So we did have the registrar, we did have advising represented, just as many different voices as we could think of to include, with a nice rounding out of faculty as well, to make sure that we were hearing that voice loud and clear.
Great, thank you. And then Dr. Moore Davis, certainly I love to see aggressive timelines because I think sometimes we move too slow to respond. And so certainly I couldn't echo Mary's thoughts anymore about guided pathways is the way we need to go. I know the chancellor's been talking about it since he's been here, since I've been on the board, and sometimes we move too slow for not the betterment of the institution. And sometimes we move too fast in other areas that we should have slowed down a little bit. And certainly I'll say a little nervous when I start hearing about technology, because I feel like we spend a lot of money on that one program that I can't even think of the name of anymore, that we heard quite a few advisors just speaking about. So I'm hopeful that whatever technology we do go with is one that speaks with Banner, that works, that's not having advisors enter double notes and all of those things. And certainly that there's not one keeper of kind of the data software and then they're no longer at the institution to kind of slow us down from the process. So I'm all for technology because I know we finally got an app where students can apply online now, and certainly don't want to slow that down. But it seems like what you presented today is right on track to get us to guided pathways, to provide students with less information that's more meaningful for their own, rather than trying to swim out in the sea and have no clue what to even take. I do have some concerns about deaf ed, but I know we're talking about deaf ed in the next presentation, so I won't dive too much into that piece. But certainly, I think the clustering and the meta major sounds like a great solution to provide more focus for our students. And I'll be interested to see what data and programs are supported in the weekend and evening clustering, because I think that is a great opportunity we have. And we may take a loss financially at first, but I think institutionally and for our students, we may see better outcomes for it until we can build that program up for that. And I do think the preset program is also another thing that I know I've spoken to the chancellor about before, just having presets of class. Sometimes students just don't have any idea what to take, and you can say, oh, you can pick from these 20 classes, and they really get lost, and then they end up just dropping out or just taking the wrong class, and every class that's wrong cost more money and more time that they just can't afford, and then ultimately they just drop out. And so I appreciate the report. I appreciate the aggressive timeline. I appreciate all the feedback from faculty, staff, and registrar and technology, and anything that we can do as a board. I'm sure we're all here to support, because it sounds like we're going to now be responding to students' needs for scheduling rather than just rolling it over from year to year, which has proven not to be helpful, because I know from what I've heard, there's Friday classes and not many students like Friday classes, but maybe they do, but I just think they don't. But I don't know if we have the data to say they do love those Friday classes. I know I always try to never schedule a Friday class myself. So thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to Deaf Ed next to kind of dive into that. But I appreciate you responding and listening to the feedback from the last presentation we had a little bit over a year and a half ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions. Is that okay?
Certainly.
First off, I want to really compliment both of you for an excellent presentation, and really for all the people that are working on this. I agree with what Kevin said. It's really much more coherent and kind of moving in the right direction, and you're dovetailing the pathways of scheduling and so forth. That's excellent. Julie, when you were talking, it was pretty obvious that you're probably still nervous about the reality that all the data you're using is looking backwards. So that, that's all you can do with the current scenario. So I assume that if you've got a consultant, the whole idea of that would be they have maybe some experience and could offer some different views, but hopefully they would also have a solution to allow you to begin to ask potential students two questions. How many students want to go into what kind of meta major, and what kind of schedules might work for them? I mean, would they like, as Kevin said, they like the weekend schedule, or, they want their Fridays and Saturdays to be protected. I mean, all those kinds of things that you would somehow need to know. So I would hope that there is a plan to look at getting data for you to use for potential students and provide the kind of instruction for them. If we're ever going to be the quote nimble, the word that everybody likes right now, but it's a good word. We can't wait a whole year or semester and say, well, that didn't work very well. Let's do it better. Somehow we have to be able to respond quickly to the needs of the students who are with us right now or want to be with us, but we need to work with them. And I don't want to go on and on about it, but I would hope that if you've got ideas about the kinds of consulting firms that could do that you and Dr. Pittman will be talking about that, and bring that forward so that as we solve this, we go right to the top of the list of colleges doing the very best work in this area. That's where we want to go.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
I also thought it was unusual that you picked Deaf Ed, since that is an area that we're going to be talking about. So
It's an easy one that we have a pathway for. We have ways to
I don't think
help
we want a
them to move.
pathway for Deaf Ed. I assume we don't. We've had that for about 20 years, so probably want to get rid of that.
Okay, do we have more questions from anyone or comments?
Just one comment, Madam Chair. I mean, to me, I know technology is frustrating because about the time you get it implemented, it's outdated and antiquated, and there's some other new product out that's better. But the process here is what's exciting to me, because literally what's been going on in most community colleges is that scheduling developed by different groups, not even on the same campus, independent of one another, and not communicating. So this process brings people together, including bringing student affairs in, which I think is going to be a much more holistic approach than what we've done in the past. I mean, people are very well intentioned when they plan scheduling, but they're doing it not in the same room or together. And I think this process will make that happen. I mean, that's a very simplistic view of it, but to me, that's where the really big win is here.
Thank you, Dr. Pittman. So let's move on to developmental education transformation.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I assume everyone can see that just fine.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of the great work that we've done already in DevEd transformation and provide some future recommendations as we look toward moving the needle, not just incrementally, but well off the charts. So I thought I'd begin by giving you just a quick outline of what I'll share today. I'm going to begin by talking about some definitions that exist around developmental education, just because I use some shop language throughout. And so I'd like for you all to have the same understanding when I say DevEd. That does include two different levels. We'll talk about how developmental education works within our strategic plan and why this work is necessary. I'll share with you some information that's provided to us by the state. We'll review the best practices that exist in developmental ed redesign. We'll talk about some of our accomplishments to date, look forward to our future, and then I'll do a quick recap just because there is a lot of information in this presentation. So I'll begin by just going through the definitions. Foundations course. So when we say foundations, that's a developmental course that is a standalone course, and it's designed typically for students who are less prepared for college level work. So right now we have multiple foundation level courses. Think reading 030, English 030, math 020, 050. Those are all foundation level courses. A co-requisite or co-rec course is a developmental education course. So it's still DevEd, but it's designed to be taken alongside a gateway course. So students must enroll in both. They can't enroll in just one. And it's really intended to provide support for the college level course, which is different than a foundations course, which provides kind of like a backfill of information that students might need prior to getting in. So it's more like a prerequisite model. And then the gateway course is the college level credit bearing course that students typically take in their first semester, though we oftentimes have issues with students delaying these until sometimes the 7th or 8th semester of enrollment. So the overview of the issue, right now, DevEd exists within primarily theme 1 in the strategic plan, but it really impacts multiple parts of our strategic plan, because I don't know if you all can see based off how your settings are over in the right-hand corner, but nationally, students of color and those who receive Pell Grants are very disproportionately captured in the developmental education cycle. And so in addition to this being a part of the work that we do with providing a premier student experience and ensuring students are well prepared, it also speaks to the work we need to be doing with equity, diversity, and inclusion. So why is this work necessary for us? I'm going to begin by showing you the oh no charts. That's what I call them. These were the charts that we started with when we began our DevEd transformation back in fall 2016. The college actually was working toward DevEd redesign for a number of years before I even came in 2016. And I think that's where a lot of this research and data stem from. So these charts were provided by our institutional research and planning team, and they followed a cohort of new students who were first time in college. It was 5,365 of them from fall 2011 through spring 2015. So they tracked these students for 4 years. And as you can see, the data that they got was not super excellent. Only 13% of the students who started in that cohort were fully college ready. So that's across the whole district, only 13%. And the other 87% needed either 1, 2, or 3 developmental education courses, with the largest majority of those students needing all 3 areas. And then when you track those students through their progression, only 8% of students who needed all 3 DevEd levels ever earned 36 or more college credits within 4 years. And so this speaks directly to our other completion, retention, and graduation rates, because if they can't get through that first course, then they're not getting through their program. And you'll see that here on this slide. And so for reading, only about 46% of those students tested into developmental. Reading tends to be our smallest cohort of developmental, but math is obviously our largest, with 85% of students needing some developmental coursework. But within that cohort of students, only 20% of those who placed into developmental passed a college level math course within 4 years, and only 29% passed an English course. There is no direct associated reading college level course, so we often use English for that, though right now with our co-rec model, students are working directly in all types of courses. But I don't want you to think about this as just an STLCC issue, because these statistics are the same ones that we see nationally. And what all of the national data shows is the longer the student's pathway in DevEd, the more opportunities for an off-ramp. And so if you have 3 or more levels of remediation, and at STLCC when we first started, that was true in many of the areas. The more levels you have, the more likely they are to not complete. And so nationally, in this group of students who were studied, only 29% passed the Gateway English course, and only 11% passed the Math Gateway course. So the state decided at 2012 to get involved with developmental education. And so I won't read all of these points to you. I did I think we all shared our PowerPoints with Jessica, so you'll be able to receive these too. But HB 1042, which is a really important one, was signed into law and requires all Missouri public institutions that are under coordination of CBHE to replicate best practices in remedial education so that we can improve student retention and increase educational attainment. And then RSMO 173 outlines that a little bit further and defines who designates best practices and where we should be looking for that information. So a lot of the things you'll see in my PowerPoint show best practices from folks like Complete College America or from other states who have already completely redesigned their DivEd. And so the state includes these goals in HB 1042, which is, of course, student retention, increased educational attainment, which will lead to degree completion, continuous quality improvement, which is a part of everything we do at STLCC, and then also enhancing college readiness. And they define college readiness not just as being prepared for gateway level courses, but being prepared for college as a whole. And so it's not enough just to prepare a student with the course specific content that they'll need in reading, English, and math, but college readiness as defined by CBHE includes sufficient knowledge of a variety of subjects, maturity, perseverance, problem solving, critical thinking. And so we can't just add co-requisites. We can't just change multiple measures. We have to do so much more in DevEd, redesign, and transformation to really ensure student success and college readiness. And so some of the accepted and standard best practices for developmental education include using multiple measures for placement, redesigning so that you compress the number of courses that the students need, and that may require changing curriculum, creating co-requisite pathways, implementing comprehensive, integrated, and long-lasting support programs, and immediate support programs as well. So one of the things that we've done at STLCC is including embedded tutors in DevEd math and English courses, so students don't have to go out of their course to seek support. It's right there in their class. Aligning their coursework between what they do in DevEd and what they'll do in the gateway level course, because what a lot of states were seeing was that students were in fact passing their DevEd coursework. They would make A's, B's, and C's in their foundational level courses, but then they would go to their gateway level courses and would not be successful. And that's because the curriculum was not aligned. And in other institutions, not STLCC, because we don't do it this way, thank goodness, very typically developmental education faculty are in one department, and then college level faculty are in a whole other department. And so there's not a lot of cross communication at STLCC. They're all within that same department, which doesn't cause us the same kind of problems. Creating policies that would require students to complete their gateway level courses in English and math at the beginning of their student coursework, or at least encouraging them to do so. Creating math pathways which align with their intended area of study and their future career. I will tell you, so this is the second major redesign project that I've worked on for DevEd. The other one was in my previous institution in Georgia. And that was a much different process because it was all mandated by the state, and we just did what we were told to do, and we had 6 weeks to do it. But the biggest change that we saw was not in changing to a co-requisite, but it was in changing math pathways. A significant shift in student success once students started aligning their math course with their intended area of study. And then finally, implementing alternative delivery models for students who are very significantly underprepared. So I'm going to show you a series of recommendations, but before I show you our recommendations, I thought you might want to know why we came to those conclusions. And so I'm going to show you a couple things from some different states. This first one comes from California, and California did some really impressive work with their DevEd transformation. The state did it kind of phased out throughout just a very short period of time, just a couple of years. But they saw an incredible change in the students who are being successful in their gateway level courses. And so just within, by 2018, which was shortly after they redesigned, the proportion of students who completed a transfer level course within one semester rose 18 points in math and 30 points in English. And then for students who were taking transfer courses with Co-Req, the completion was double that of the students who were following a traditional model. So under the old model, which is like what we had and have in some instances, they almost doubled in English, and then increased 5 times over in math, from 14% to 65%. And what they found was that even students who had the lowest high school GPAs, those students whom we would say, no, you're not ready, you're not prepared, even those students who have the lowest high school GPAs faced better odds when they enrolled directly in a transfer course than in a traditional remedial course. And then other states have similarly seen some incredible gains. So states like Colorado and Georgia, who have transitioned from a 2-year pathway to a 1-year pathway, saw co-requisite remediation, saw increases in gateway success to 64 and 71% over the national average, which is just 22%. In other states, they have changed to a 1-semester pathway, and those success markers are very similar. So switching to a Co-Req model increases success rates almost 3-fold, but it decreases the time from 2 years to 1 to 2 semesters. So I'd be remiss if I didn't show you what we've already accomplished so far, because a lot of work has been done in this area, including the implementation of co-requisite courses. So in English, we implemented co-reqs in fall 2019. And so on this slide, the blue indicates foundation level and the gray indicates college level enrollment, including co-requisite. And so you'll see that we decreased by almost 1,000 students just by implementing a co-requisite and multiple measures within 1 semester. That's a very big change. And you could say, well, maybe those students just didn't come back, right? We've seen some declining enrollment, but that wasn't the case because we increased our college level enrollment significantly. The same thing happened in reading. In reading, we only have foundational level before. And so we had about 1,200 students who were enrolled in a reading course. By the time we redesigned and went to a co-requisite course, we dropped down to 877, with about half of those students being in college level co-req classes. So that is a significant change. These are students who before would have been waiting before they took any college level coursework, and now they're in college level coursework, but getting the support that they need. And math, the numbers didn't change a significant amount, but it's also harder to get a really big change in math because their enrollment is so large, right? So just laws of percentages. I'm not a math major, I'm an English major, but I at least know that much. But we did see a decrease of about 200 students in foundation level and an increase of about 200 students in college level. So the needle was moving in the right direction. And we saw similar gains in the spring. So in the spring, we decreased our total Dev Ed significantly by about 700 students, but we increased in co-requisite and intermediate placement and in our gateway classes. And that's, enrollment is great, but you also need to see success and progression. And so I wanted to show you that our completion statistics are also improving. They're not huge jumps like you would see with enrollment, but completion statistics are moving in the right direction in all 3 areas. So beyond creating co-requisites, the work that we've done so far includes creating an alternative delivery model program, or our Longbow, which is a free non-credit program for students who need significant support in preparing for college level work, implementing multiple measures for placement, providing for professional development for our faculty and our staff, and also creating an assessment plan to be used to ensure that we are collecting data, analyzing that data, and making the right decisions where necessary. Work that's being finalized this spring includes creating a Math 160 or a STEM pathway co-rec option, because right now students who are studying or who plan to study Math 160 and follow a STEM pathway don't have an option for co-rec. That won't be the case beginning in fall 21. We are working on really significant communication planning to ensure that students, parents, high school counselors, faculty, staff, everyone understands the changes and the recommendations that we'll be implementing and that we have implemented. And that includes beefing up communications around math pathways as well. And then finally, additional professional development and training, again, for all faculty and staff. So the big future recommendations. They are going to focus on 10 different areas. And as I mentioned, numbers 8, 9, and 10 are already in the works. That's work that we began this fall. But some of these others are things that we have talked about and had on our back burner or on our agendas. We call it on the horizon. But I think we've approached the horizon. So the first one will be in regards to placement testing and multiple measures. Excuse me. So right now we are using interim placement guidelines because of COVID, because our students cannot come to take the AccuPlacer placement test. That's not necessarily been a bad thing, because placement tests are only one measure of success and don't always point to a student's full readiness for college. As we know, and as a lot of studies have shown, GPA is actually a much greater indicator of future success. And so right now, we are relying primarily on the GPA as placement. We do that already in reading and English, or have been doing that already in reading and English. And then the math faculty have created placement, not just based on GPA, but on previous coursework that students completed in high school for math and what those grades were, because that's a much greater indication of where that student should go and what knowledge level they would have for preparation. We will have to create placement guidance for our new STEM course because it will have a co-rec option. And then the recommendation will be starting for registration for summer and fall of 2022. So that means it will need to be in place and ready to go usually by January, will be to create an in-house placement tool. So students would not be taking the AccuPlacer anymore. They would use an in-house placement tool that would ask them questions like we've been using under our COVID placement guidelines. It might have a couple of questions about subject matter. What I've seen in some other in-house placement tools, OTC has a really nice one, but it asks the students, it gives them a problem, it shows them the solution, and then it says, you know, what was your comfort level with this problem and finding the solution. Some benefits will be that this will create much more specific guidance for non-STEM math to encourage enrollment in appropriate pathways. The faculty will be able to create a tool based off of the knowledge and skills that students need in the classroom, rather than relying on a standardized test. Students will be able to receive better guidance and be a strong participant in the placement process, which is really important. And then it also utilizes multiple measures far more accurately. So some timelines, we will need faculty volunteers, though I would hope, of course, to compensate them, to create the in-house placement tool over summer 2021. We would share that tool with faculty broadly during service week in the fall. And then the final recommendations for this tool would need to be sent to the web team, because the goal would be to put this on our website in a mobile-friendly environment so that students could do their placement right from their phone if they needed to, and get better advice about what courses they need to take, rather than trying to find a babysitter and get transportation and set aside time to go take the placement test, and then only to have to take it again because maybe they didn't eat breakfast that day. So anyone who has to deal with placement tests or standardized tests knows all of those struggles. But as we know, they are not the best representation of a student's readiness. So some costs that will be associated with this will be extended time pay for the 4 to 6 faculty members to participate in the creation of the in-house placement tool. We already have a lot of this work already finished, so that's really positive news. But a cost savings would be to remove the use of AccuPlacer if no longer needed, unless the college wanted to use it for some other purpose. In terms of advising and what students should take, our goal will be to default to placement in co-requisite level remediation. And so rather than having a student start in a foundation level, maybe several levels below the college level, they would default into the co-rec level. I have a chart that explains this a lot more clearly, and so I'll probably switch to that very soon. But some benefits will be to allow students to take their gateway course within their first semester, which significantly shortens time to completion. It will reduce costs for students and allow them to begin coursework more quickly. It also gets students into their programs more quickly. And so if you're a student who maybe isn't that jazzed about general education, but is very, very excited about the courses that you're taking in your CTE program, this will get you there more quickly and hopefully work toward retention. Students will still have an option to follow a traditional model if that's what they prefer, or we will try to increase participation in our Longbow program so that students could work through an accelerated no-cost model if they wanted a little bit more preparation before heading into co-recs. Our hope would be that we would implement all of these changes for summer, fall 2020 registration. Summer and fall registration happen at the same time, so it really needs to start with summer, though I know that seems kind of strange. Because a lot of the work that we would have to do will involve changing prerequisites for every course that we have, because we have something called reading proficiency. And so this change would necessitate a change in reading proficiency, and all of that work also is in our procedure, which typically runs through governance. And so it's a little bit longer process to do this, but we feel fairly confident that we could be ready for summer registration. It also involves touching every single course and banner and then updating the schedule appropriately. Some costs associated would be a decrease in revenue from DevEd foundational coursework tuition, but hopefully this will translate into more revenue for increased retention, right? It's much better to save students that cost in courses that don't count toward their program. So this just kind of reiterates, we would expect students who place directly into college level work to go directly into those gateway courses in their first semester. Co-rec would serve as the default option, and we would want students who require co-requisite remediation to be in those courses in their first semester. And then students who desire more preparation can take a foundation level course or participate in Longbow. And so this is what it would look like for math. QR is quantitative reasoning, or math 161. Stats is math 180, and then pre-calc algebra is math 160. There's lots of other pathways. Students could take math 185 instead of math 160 if they prefer. But you'll see the college level placement is the college level course. The developmental level placement is the co-requisite, so students are still completing that gateway. And then if a student chose to take a slower path, they would follow Math 150 or Longbow and then move into the co-requisite course. So for English and reading, it looks very similar. Students would either start in English 101 or they would start in English 101 with 079. For reading, they would be considered reading proficiency met, or they would take reading 079 with an associated college level course. Students take things like history, they might take music appreciation, they might take English, they take lots of different courses to align with this reading 079. For scheduling, if recommendations 1 and 2 are implemented, then what we would need to do is decrease the number of foundational level sections of course and increase the rec level sections. We would also need to create more POT 3 and 4. So that's our second 8-week courses and our 12-week courses, because we would want students who exit Longbow to have a plan to enroll in those courses as soon as they finish Longbow. We don't want them delaying participation with STLCC, to start a new semester. We want them to have lots of different on-ramps so that they can come directly to us. Some challenges with scheduling. Well, you heard all about Dr. Fickus and Dr. Moore Davis's plans, so we'll let them take that part from there. When you schedule with a whole new redesign, it sometimes operates almost like a shot in the dark, because you have all of that past data, all that historical data, but you've changed your placement, you've changed the curriculum, you've changed your entire model. And so what we're going to have to do is do constant and iterative review of the schedule starting in May and through registration, just to ensure that we have enough sections and that sections are offered at the times that are needed. You usually only have to do that 1 to 2 semesters before you get really good data and can schedule easily moving forward. In terms of changing the curriculum, we already have co-requisite courses that exist except in the STEM math pathway, but that has already been put into our curriculum system, so we do expect it will be ready by fall 2021. Other changes that will be necessary will be to look at our foundations courses that we already have and revise them if necessary, because right now students take that course and plan to go sometimes directly into a college level course, sometimes to another dev ed course. We want this to do that alignment that we talked about earlier that was so important. The other thing that will need to happen is all program coordinators who supervise non-STEM programs that only allow the STEM math, they're going to need to review their math requirements and ensure correct alignment with math pathways, because what we don't want is for a student to be hindered from taking a math pathways course that's outside of Math 160. They really don't have to. Students always have the option to take Math 160, but sometimes that's not the best course for a student to take. I never took pre-calculus algebra. I took finite math and statistics, and that allows me to do these fancy charts that I share with you today. The timeline for this, we would review existing student learning outcomes for our existing foundation courses by the end of May, create new foundations courses by September and put them in our curriculum process. And then by this April, we would hope that program coordinators would review all of their programs to ensure they align with math pathways. The alternative delivery model, or Longbow, already exists, but it's not currently having a lot of traction. We don't have a lot of students in there. Part of that is the timing. Right when Longbow took off was right when we all went home for COVID. And so there was not a lot of opportunity to share the information with students, for students to see other Longbow students working in the space. And so we know that coming back to campus at some point fully will increase that participation. But we also want to help encourage that by reviewing the work that students do in Longbow to ensure that it is aligned. So doing some more curriculum alignment there. And then we also recommend that we allow faculty, specifically in reading, to utilize release time to serve as instructors and mentors in that Longbow program. Some of the benefits of having our full-time faculty participate in Longbow rather than part-time tutors will be that students obviously will be better prepared for future courses. They will have an even stronger connection to the college because of that faculty relationship and faculty mentorship. More students will be able to take advantage of the program and decrease their time in developmental education. And this may also support faculty who have reduced loads because of these other redesign measures that we're implementing. So in terms of policy and procedure change, there's not a whole lot that needs to be updated. One, in terms of AP and BP, one of them will be reading proficiency, as I've already mentioned. The other one that we're hoping to add is that any associate degree seeking student who has not completed English 101 or higher and Math 160 or higher, because we do have students who come in with transfer credits that don't have those courses, within 30 attempted hours would be required to meet with an academic advisor before registration. Because what we don't want, and what I've seen sometimes through the academic suspension process, is a student who's in their 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th semester at the college who's still in developmental education math, or who's not completed math because they've been nervous. And so that's been the one thing that's kept them from completion. So if we know that if they meet with some of our wonderful advisors, they can help, make sure they're using the right math pathways, make sure they're understanding their self-guided placement, and get them to and through. The college also already has a repeat policy, and right now it is turned on in Banner. So students who are needing a third attempt in developmental education must meet with an advisor before they register for that third attempt. That's another really important change that's already been implemented. So some benefits: students should complete these pivotal gateway courses ideally in their first semester, if not their first year. We know we have many part-time students, and completing in the first semester is not always possible for them. But requiring students to meet with an advisor ensures that they've had a conversation about their path to make sure they're not delaying completion. We know, because research has shown, that students who delay taking these gateway courses often accumulate unnecessary coursework and delay their graduation. So this slide I like to lovingly refer to as the slide that might make Paul Zink nervous. This is the slide that has some additional recommendations for consideration as it relates to student support. So the first recommendation includes creating a dedicated district-wide faculty coordinator for developmental education, because the faculty are more connected to the curriculum, and they're able to share information with their colleagues, review what the curriculum looks like, and then create any recommended changes as necessary. They also would be they're really pivotal in sharing information with student affairs to ensure that student affairs has all the information that they need to help those students be successful. The next one would be to create additional support for students through dedicated student success advisors. A lot of these students require more frequent communication and a higher level of engagement than our students have with our current advising setup. And so this would also allow us to ramp up the early alert program to put in more alerts more frequently to help keep students on track, and also to provide students with an outlet for information that might be keeping them from being successful that's non-academic. So referring them to other areas of support on campus, like our new childcare centers. Reimagining Smart Start. Right now we have Smart Start is our equivalent of our first year experience course. It is only required for students who are in Reading 030. And so if Reading 030 is not required, then we may not need this course. But we do have STR 100, which is a 1 credit hour course. And we'd like to further study reconsidering that course as a requirement for students in developmental education, not just those who are in foundational reading. We can include mentoring as part of this course, and also include it as part of a larger first year experience program that I know Dr. Davis has spoken about before. First year experience programs are considered a high impact practice that a lot of institutions have implemented. I think our students would benefit greatly from a first year experience program, if not course. And then finally, additional support may be needed in academic support if we see a larger uptick in students who are taking advantage of the co-requisite remediation. So things like our math center and our writing center. So we've already talked about some of this work in progress. I just wanted to give you a little more detail. The first will be professional development. We will have a session during Staff Development Day in March. That's typically when we share information like this that impacts student affairs particularly, so that they will know about recommendations that might be coming down or changes we've already made. We have also asked that discipline faculty submit requests for additional funding by January 29th. We use Academic Affairs Initiative funds to help support this development of faculty district-wide. In terms of communication, in addition to enhancing the information we have on the web. We will also be sharing this information, hopefully with high school counselors at the next counselor's breakfast, because we want to ensure that they know what those pathways look like for students too. And then we'll have to update the placement documents and all of our dual credit and dual enrollment memorandums of understanding. And then finally, as I mentioned, we already have an assessment plan, and COVID has significantly changed what we were planning to do with that assessment plan. So we will be collecting data for a number of years, and we will have to extend that timeline because, as we mentioned before, we have a lot of part-time students. If we have to track those students through their progress, it's going to take a lot longer than what we had intended, but that's okay. That's a good thing. So just to wrap up, here is a quick list of all of our recommendations that we hope to implement using interim placement guidelines until fall 22 for placement, when we'll create an in-house placement tool, defaulting to placement and co-requisite remediation instead of foundational level remediation for students, providing students with an option to take the foundations level course or Longbow, requiring the creation of a singular foundations course if one does not exist, rather than a 2 or 3 sequence foundations course, allowing faculty release time to increase capacity and student success in Longbow, requiring schedule review and increasing co-requisite section numbers, decreasing foundational numbers, and increasing POT 3 and 4 offerings for Longbow students, and then requiring any associate's degree seeking student who has not completed English 101 or Math 160 within 30 hours to meet with an advisor. So as it relates to project management, the DevEd Redesign Task Force Executive Committee has already established smaller working groups for many of these initiatives. We fully realize recommendations may need additional working groups, and that can happen as early as this Thursday. We meet 3 to 4 times a semester, and all goals, timelines, deliverables, and other information are reiterated constantly throughout the semester, and we also share them with academic leadership to ensure completion. And then this is just a slide to say thank you to everyone who's worked on this project for so many years, and to especially thank the trustees and the chancellor. You all have created an opportunity for us to be nimble, to implement best practices, and to really change the trajectory of where our students are headed. So thank you. Are there any questions?
Dr. Perkins, this is Pam Ross.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you give me like an example of a student who may not be quite ready? What kind of classes would they start with, and just kind of run that by me a little bit, because I'm not exactly clear. I mean, I understand the concept, but what kind of classes would they start taking right away?
Sure. So if a student tested below college level, or were placed below college level, they would typically, say they tested in all 3 areas and they were a full-time student. They would typically start with English 101. English.
I don't think you understand. I'm saying in the new model,
yes.
What kind of classes would they start with?
Yes. So they would start with English 101 and English 079. So that's 2 courses. And they will take Reading 079, and they might take a different course with that. So they might take Reading 079 paired with History 101, for example. And so that would be their first 12 hours. They could also take Math 160, 161, or 180 along with the co-rec class. So they'll be in the gateway level course that they need for their program, but they'll take a co-requisite course in addition to that.
I guess I didn't quite understand what other, in their second semester, be taking inside of their discipline. That's what I'm not really clear about. If you put in the English and the reading and the math, what are they taking aside from that? Maybe is the question.
Within their first semester or their second semester?
She looks frozen for a second.
I guess I don't understand. To put them in a reading, math, and English, are they taking anything besides that?
It will depend on how many credit hours the student wants to take in that first semester. And so if a student only places into math developmental education, which is the majority of our students, they would take their math and their co-rec math, but then they would also take anything else that's in their recommended academic plan. And so the student will still follow their academic plan as will be laid out through the meta majors and guided pathways or their CTE program. And so they'll still follow that academic plan, but math and English are foundational for nearly every program that a student takes outside of some of our short-term certificate programs. And those students who are in short-term certificate programs don't always have to take developmental education because they don't have prerequisites for those courses. So rather than right now, right now under the pathway, students in their first semester take Math 020, English 020, or sorry, English 030, Reading 030, and maybe a Smart Start. And not a single one of those courses is in that student's academic program of study. So while they are required courses currently, none of them count toward checking the boxes for the student to complete their program. In this new model, they would be taking English 101 with co-requisite, History 101 with co-requisite, and Math 160 or 161 with co-requisite, and they would get 3 of their Gen Ed courses or their foundational courses for their AAS completed toward their program.
And are they likely to, I mean, I know it was sort of in there in your statistics, are they likely to pass those 3 particular courses?
Well, it depends on the student, but all of the research that they've done on the co-requisite remodel in lots of other states has shown that yes, they do in fact pass. And they pass at higher rates being placed directly into that college level course with support than they do if they were in Reading 030.
Okay, so it took us this long to figure out that we could just go ahead and put them in those classes. I mean, this seems sort of strange to an outsider like me.
Well, these practices in developmental education redesign are fairly new to higher education as a whole. The best practices document from HB 1042 came out in 2012, but a lot of states were very slow to implement. I mean, even a huge state like California didn't see full redesign until fall 2018. And so we've been working on these same kinds of things for a number of years, and we have implemented co-requisite remediation already. But right now, we see more enrollment, particularly in math and foundational. In reading and English, we've already seen a big jump into co-requisite placement. We've seen a big jump, but that's not true in math. And so these policies would kind of make this across the board in all 3 disciplines.
Okay, well, I understand a lot better now. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And I'm also thinking, Elizabeth, that the success in these courses early on for those who get financial aid can then use their financial aid to move them through full credit courses in their discipline and get them ready for either a career or more education, because our experience has been that they use so much of their financial aid doing the developmental courses that they don't finish because they run out of financial aid. This sounds like it's going to help towards solving that problem.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay. Do we have other questions or concerns?
I have a question. So when you're taking a co-rec class, which I would need to take to pass the math class for sure. I'm serious. I mean, if they're anyway, so would the co-rec part of that and the college part of it, would that be taught in the same time frame? Is that, how does this, I'm a student, how does this look? Am I taking 2 different class, like, is this a class that's combined? So I'm only having to spend, you know, like Monday or Tuesday and Thursday at this class? at this combined class, is that going to be more efficient for me? Or is there some part of this that's developmental that meets on Monday and then the real class is, I mean, how does that look?
So the scheduling parts of it.
Thanks.
And that varies depending upon the discipline. So, and different research has been done in different disciplines. But like, for instance, in reading, the student takes, we'll say History 101, Tuesday, Thursday at 11 to 12:15. And then they would go directly to their reading class after that at 12:30 to help reinforce what they've learned in that history class. And so there's not a big gap in time between this course to the next course. They should be stacked one right on top of the other. And sometimes instead of one right on top of the other, they'll set up, so it's a Monday through Friday. So they go 5 days a week so that they see it every single day. That's been shown to be really successful in things like languages and in math, not necessarily in English. And in English, it's better to go longer because you've got more time to work on your writing, more time to work on your reading, because it's such a recursive process. But for things like math, going every day, though our students don't tend to enjoy coming every day. And so we have not set up our courses like that. They tend to be stacked one right after the other. So just like you would build a schedule where you have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8, 9, 10, 12, 1, these courses would be stacked like that.
Thank you.
Annie, I appreciate that because it makes me think, you know, particularly being a former math teacher, math is usually the gateway for high school graduation, college graduation. It will, and, you know, to start with this, let me say, I want us to see an elimination of deaf ed altogether. I think the co-rec route model is certainly a much more efficient model, because if you're a student and you had to take a whole year of developmental ed and none of it even counted towards your degree, there's not much motivation there. And so I'm glad to hear that I support a co-rec model. I have a hard time swallowing a pill of developmental education courses, because I do think it is, as you showed on that one chart, there's just not much persistence and retention rate from that. And so my question would be for the math class particularly, is it the same teacher teaching it? Because I feel like if it's not, if I'm the college algebra teacher, professor, but I'm not supporting it, it's not the same level of support and knowledge needed, because I can't help in a smaller group. So I just want to help myself understand, is it, okay, I'm the teacher, so I might teach 35 kids in a large lecture style, but then there's 7 kids who maybe are students, 7 students who maybe are in the co-rec part that meet with me right before or right after that class, but they're all in my class. So I know specifically what they're working on. They just took a quiz and I know, oh, they need to work on this skill in a smaller setting. So they're functioning fine in the large setting, but they're getting the same support from the same professor in a smaller co-rec class. Is that what's happening?
That is not necessarily what's happening right now in math, because we don't have large numbers of enrollment in math. We were able to do that, I think, this fall because we were all LVL. And so we could have one course that was offered taught by, so they taught the 161 and the 150 and the 056 because it was LVL, and we could open it up to students district wide. And so we didn't have to worry about running this section with 3, this section with 2, this section with 4, because that's also not financially sustainable for the college. But I think what we're going to be working toward, and our goal will be to create courses that they're labeled like Math 160S. And so the student, rather than having to worry about, does this course pair with this one? Is this the same teacher? Is there an override that I have to get registered for these sections? They would register for one CRN that would give them the required amount of seat time with the same teacher. Right now in English, they do have the same faculty member for both, because that's very important. And reading, because they're supporting students who are in a different class, obviously they don't, but they do work very closely with that other faculty member to get information and to share things back and forth, almost like it's a team situation.
I appreciate. I mean, I think obviously online campus is a little bit easier because they can put anywhere, but certainly I think for math to see some success, I would really like us to figure out how to get it together. Obviously, that's not my problem to figure out. It's your guys' problem to figure out. But certainly, I think it's more efficient and helpful for a student to be able to hear. So I like the idea of having, maybe you have 8 seats open in the S section and the same time is a regular section with 20 seats or whatever. So you have 30 seats almost in a class, but not everyone's registering for the S. So that way, as a professor, I know I'm going to be teaching these extra supports, because I do think it's to transfer the knowledge of math, I think is difficult to other areas because I don't know specifically what you want. English is a lot easier. Reading, I can have you read a passage and tell you some things I need to help you work on. Math's a little bit more challenging because I don't know what problems and all that you're working on. So I'll get off my soapbox about math. Certainly, I appreciate us eliminating deaf ed classes and moving towards co-recs. It sounds like the timeline, if I heard it correctly, is by fall of 2022. If I heard that correct, it would be the goal of eliminating those and doing a co-rec model and still figuring out scheduling efficiencies, which seems like it aligns with the guided pathways and the other things that are happening with schedule efficiencies as well. So it seems like it's all aligned well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And we will have co-rec options for all areas starting in fall 2021. But the overview of looking at the prerequisites for every course the college offers, that just takes a little bit more time before we, put it in policy.
Okay. Do we have other questions or comments?
I just have one more comment. I think that, it certainly is going to give the student a lot more confidence that they passed a college course. It's going to give them, they're going to feel better about themselves. And, that's another huge piece in this whole thing, is to give students the confidence that they can do it. And I think that confidence just keeps begetting confidence. So maybe I will take that math class finally, if I can do the co-rec thing, if it's offered at night only. So anyway, those are my challenges. So anyway, and Kevin, you can help tutor me too. So I just really don't know if I know how to divide a fraction right now, but anyway, I don't need to do that right now. I just need to listen. So thank you very much for all the hard work on this. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So another question for the group. Do we want to take a break now, or do you want to continue to move forward?
I'd love a break.
Okay. How about 10 minutes?
5:55. See you all back.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, what do I do?
How many more hours do we have to go? Anybody know?
I'm sorry, Doris, what was that?
How many more hours do we have to go?
Well, we have 2 more presentations, so it could be another hour and a half or a little
Okay.
more.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Graham, we have this scheduled until 7. If you don't get through everything, we can schedule another workshop.
Okay, I'm at home. I'm fine. I just had rushed in from Deer Valley Hospice 5 minutes to get on to this workshop, and didn't have a chance to completely read the agenda. So that's why I asked a question. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
No, it's probably closer to 7:30.
Oh.
Hey, Pam, just let you know you're unmuted. Tell Pat hello.
Yeah. For that meet.
Happy 2021, Pat. Can you hear me, Pam? You keep freezing, I think.
One question I didn't get to ask in the last thing, I'm shuffling a work problem, so I had a couple phone calls. I wanted to know more about Longbow. Did we talk in any depth about that? First off, not the most obvious name, but setting that aside, you know, I understand that it's probably a follow-up of a grant the college got some years ago to do what I thought I understood the work would be, but I think it'd be a good idea for us to get a better understanding of that. It's a free opportunity, as I heard it, a free opportunity for students to sort of skip remediation by coming to a set of learnings where they just make progress and then they start school. But I may misunderstand that.
Yeah, Craig, we can follow up on that. That's my understanding too, that these are online or other types of resources that don't cost the students anything.
And
it helps get them better prepared for the co-rec.
it is online. It's not.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you can.
I'd want Elizabeth to verify that.
Yeah, I'm not going to understand online in our current time, but it seems like those are the students who need to be in person more than almost anybody.
Mhm.
So, Dr. Pittman, I don't know if you can hear me. Is Elizabeth?
Yes.
Okay, I've changed, so I'm not on the screen anymore. So yeah, Longbow is a non-credit program that's run out of Hart's section. So he can probably tell you even more, but it is right now they are operating remotely. Yeah, I don't think they can either. They are operating remotely until they can come back. But you are absolutely right, Dr. Larson. Those are the students that need a lot of high touch, a lot of engagement and mentoring and coaching. That's what makes that model more successful.
I think Hart's trying to speak, but it's not.
Yeah, I don't think you can hear me.
Now we can.
Oh, well, all right. See, ask and you shall receive. So yeah, that's it. The Longbow name, I will say, is a play on archers. That's where it came up because it had another name earlier that also wasn't particularly intuitive, which I think is what Elizabeth was talking about, just making sure that we get more awareness of this. But it's exactly as described. It is designed to be an in-person, individual pace. So we have the teachers that are there. It is beyond tutoring, but not a full class. So people work at their individual pace. They work on either writing, reading, or on math. So those are the three areas that we have instructors for at their own pace to make advancement where it is not costing them Pell dollars or any other dollars in order for them to advance towards college level curriculum. And the goal is to get everyone college ready at no cost to them so that they're able to hit the ground running. And again, recognizing that folks need to work at an individual pace. Sometimes they're able to come in afternoons, sometimes it's mornings, and people don't need everything necessarily. So if they just want to focus on math because it's been a while since they've been in school, for example, that's the intent of Longbow. Right now, it was offered at Forest Park. It has moved since then to Flo Valley. But once we get past the pandemic, there is a hope that we will be able to expand it back to Forest Park as well, since we know that there's need there, but we're not looking at kind of expanding footprint space when people are doing it remotely. I will say there have been challenges, as Elizabeth described. Kind of the students that we need to reach don't necessarily have the broadband, don't have laptops. It is being offered completely remotely, and we're doing follow-ups. And Matt Farb and his team have done a good job of trying to increase awareness during the pandemic, but really this will hit the ground running once we're back in classrooms.
Okay, it sounds like we need to be back in session with persistence and failing rate updates.
Trustee Ross, I'm going to share my screen. So good evening, Chair Ross, trustees, Dr. Pittman, other LT members, presenters. Pretty heavy topics tonight. And Julie and Felicia and Elizabeth are tough acts to follow, but this is important work. I appreciate a bit of time to talk about another topic in the same vein. And so tonight we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some other projects we're doing to affect change on the persistence and failing rate at St. Louis Community College. So in my little bit of time, here's the approach. I'm going to talk just briefly about some recent data that I know the trustees have seen and the leadership team has seen. And I want to make sure that we understand a little bit about the breadth of serious projects that we're working on to affect change in this area. And then I'm going to focus the lion's share of the attention on the student course success team, which we haven't heard from or about tonight, and on some progress we're making in online education. So recently, Dr. Pittman shared with the trustees and Kelly Burns shared with the leadership team some information about our graduation and transfer rates. Also shared some information about courses and their success rates. But on this particular slide, I'm just going to review quickly the information that precipitated some of the topics tonight. And that is, in the last 5 years at St. Louis Community College, we have made significant progress on our graduation rates. But when you compare our rates to the other community colleges in Missouri, we still lag. We do have a high transfer rate, which is positive, but when you put our transfer rate together with our graduation rate, we still lag the other community colleges. So the other community colleges in Missouri. So while we've made significant progress in the last 5 years, we still need to keep on in this direction and make headway. So most of the conversation so far tonight has been on some really important projects that are in this vein. You've heard from Julie on the work around scheduling to help retain students, and you've heard about guided pathways from Felicia that is all about retaining students goals. And then significant work has been done and is planned in our developmental education transformation projects. And Dr. Perkins provided a lot of work that's in front of us on that to help affect change here. I'm going to spend time talking about where we've been, data, trustees, and then talk a bit about some things we've been doing in online education. But there are a lot of projects that we're focused on to help with our persistence and graduation rates. And one other thing that I won't mention a lot about tonight, but I want to make sure the trustees are aware is, costs are a barrier to students. And the College Senate kicked off a group that'll start this January looking at open educational resources and other ways to reduce textbook costs, which can be a barrier to persistence. And so that's another project that we may want to talk about more a bit later on. So the student course success team, we've provided some information on this in the past, but it's been a bit of time, over a year ago. And so the purpose of this work was positively affect the course success rates for our students. So the purpose of this work is to improve course success. And this is a very fundamental and important goal in the college, because we can't have graduates, we can't have term-to-term persistence if we don't have students being successful in their courses. And no student signs up for a course intending to not be successful. So we sometimes talk about maybe a student just comes here for a course or two to transfer or those kind of things. But course success is fundamental. No one comes to fail a course, and you've got to be successful to move on and graduate. Fundamental core value to St. Louis Community College. So you may recall that a team was established in the spring of 2019. In August of 2019, I came before the board. We were face-to-face at McKelvey and presented an update draft process. I'm going to show you that slide again in just a second. It'll look familiar to many of you. That process was fine-tuned a bit, and in early spring of 2020, the team went out to the campuses to share the process and to get feedback from anybody who wanted to attend the forum. And then shortly after those forums, life changed for a lot of us. And beyond the pandemic that we're all aware of, the college also pivoted from Hyperion to Cognos in terms of its instrument for creating these reports. And so Kelly Burns and her team had to build new reports to provide the information that we suggested we should share when I updated you last time. So just so that we're on the same page, and I know a previous presenter was asked who was on the team, here's the team members for the Student Course Success Team, and you can see as you glance through here probably some familiar names. It's a good mix of faculty members across the district and other staff, some administrators, and we've been working in a collegial, collaborative way on this work for the duration of the project so far. So this is the slide that I mentioned might look familiar, and there's a lot of detail in this that we don't need to go through tonight. I just wanted to jog folks' memory and mention that the process on the outside, on the other side of the forums was adjusted slightly, but not in a significant way. And it really has this component. We collect data over an academic year, so a fall and a spring. And in the summertime, Kelly's team would work that data into Cognos reports that can be distributed out to faculty through some repositories. So there are some technical aspects of the reporting, and there's some technical aspects of getting the reports into these repositories that we had to work through. But that work has been done, and we are now positioned to, the plan was to share that data this fall. The Student Course Success Team was able to review the way that these reports look at the very end of the fall, not with enough time to get it out to faculty, but we'll be providing that shortly into the spring, and faculty were made aware of that in the Academic Affairs update just this morning during service. So just as another reminder, here's what an individualized, this is a fake faculty report. We don't have Psychology 400 or Psychology 405 at the college. But a faculty member would get, for an academic year, this listing of the sections that they taught and the outcomes in those sections. We're calling students successful if they get A's, B's, or C's, or they're satisfactory, and some less successful categories. In this individualized report, they can consider, they can take a look at, and then they can compare it to a report that shows for each of our courses what it looks like aggregated. So I get my individualized report. I taught chemistry, so I would get my report for my chemistry classes. And this is just the very top portion of what this district report would look like, but it shows across Accounting 100, here's what the success looks like in that course. Across, there's some other accounting courses, some anthropology and art courses here, and these are aggregated. And they're aggregated so that in any one of these courses, you shouldn't be able to figure out, looking at the aggregated list, who the instructor is for that class. That's those notes at the top of this. So we wanted to protect folks' privacy, but this is the aggregated data. And so now I can compare my individualized report to this aggregated report. So I could look at Chemistry 101, see how my sections are doing compared to what the average in the district looks like. So those are what these are updated from what was shared with the board before, because this is what the reports look like coming out of Cognos. This is an improved version. So we're going to share it this spring. This spring's kind of considered a pilot because of a number of oddities. We are getting it to faculty a little bit later than we planned. We also have a mitigating variable in here in terms of how the pandemic is affecting outcomes. But the future is going to require an engagement beyond getting the data and looking at the aggregated data for the disciplines. There would be an engagement required between the faculty member and the department chair or dean to talk about how their individualized report looks and compared to the district report. And that's kind of the closing the loop part, the courageous conversation part. The committee the team believes that just being aware of the data will affect change. Awareness creates change. That's why we say this often. That's why they started putting calories on a lot of the menus and restaurants and things. It affects change and behavior if you're aware. So the second part of that, though, is the conversational aspect. So in this, what comes next? So we're gonna be sharing this data, and we're gonna be closing the loop and having those conversations. So what are some things that we can help move the needle on this even further? Why we believe this is going to affect change, because there's going to be more awareness and there's going to be those conversations. The next things that we would aim for is having conversations within groups of discipline faculty. So as chemists, how are our outcomes in chemistry as a district? So are we happy with that aggregated average of 68 or 69 or 70 or 72%? Is that satisfactory? How do we feel like that compares with our peer institutions, or where we have colleagues where we can get samples? It's a little bit tough to get these comparisons. I know some trustees asked me in a previous session how easy it is to get data on these course sections from other institutions. It's really hard to get that data, but we can have those conversations, and then to set some goals, right? Continuous quality improvement is the mantra. So no matter what we are at now, the question should be for the discipline faculty, how can we move this in a positive direction? So if it's 70% now, what are the things we'd want to do to raise it to 70, 71, 72, 73%? And what would be a bar for excellence, where we'd want to maintain when we get there? Obviously, there's going to be a diminishing return at some point when we're doing this in an excellent way, but to kind of set those goals with the experts in the room. It's a little bit of an update and some next steps where this important work on sharing data with faculty, which has been one of the directions of the board for over a year now, is, and where we're going with it. I'm going to pivot to another important topic which the board hears about regularly, and that's online education. And so the next few slides are talking about some progress we've been making in online education. And I know you get bits and pieces of this in the strategic planning reports and things like that, the chancellor's updates. But I'd like to talk just for a few minutes about it. There's 3 pillars to online education: content, faculty, and students. Online education focuses on each of these pillars to ensure simultaneously developing quality distance education program with a strong foundation, and addresses the college's vision to become a model institution for inclusive and transformative education. So that's the goal of our online education. We've really been doing a lot of work in this area over the last few years. So quality content includes appropriate academic rigor, quality design, and intentional student-instructor, and student content interactions and support. To address these areas, online education has developed a process for requesting a course be developed online that includes a collaborative review by experienced online faculty and leadership. This process ensures that the course can be appropriately designed or developed with all required resources to provide an excellent learning experience for the student. Online education has also implemented a collaborative backwards course design process for new developments and redevelopments that chunks the process and incorporates best practices for distance learning in each step. Course of record development teams of faculty from across the district, a learning experience consultant, a librarian, a representative from the academic services and tutoring, all participate in these developments. The collaborative aspects of the design allow faculty from the district to be peer reviewers and at set milestones to provide feedback to the development teams. This new design process engages stakeholders from across the college to ensure content rigor, quality design, accessibility, resources, and support that are fully integrated into each course. Online education has implemented the course of record for use by all faculty in the fall 20 term, where courses of record are developed. We've introduced 3 new courses for the spring 20 and summer 20 terms, and 4 course of record developments will begin this spring to be offered in the fall of 21, bringing the total course of records to 24 for fall of 21. So to ensure quality, an online faculty leads the course of record development, and that was implemented in this process. 15 faculty members are currently participating in this program and filling this role for 17 courses. These faculty members oversee the course of record development and serve for a period of 3 semesters. The faculty lead reviews and performs any needed updates to the content prior to each term, orients the faculty to the content, and mentors new faculty to the course. Every faculty member teaching course of record content is enrolled into a faculty shell, which allows for continued feedback and conversations as they teach the content. The online faculty lead monitors the shell, facilitates the conversations, and if appropriate, can make adjustments to the content during the term. Facilitated Quality Matters certification process will begin in the spring of 21. And this is very exciting. This is for the new course of record development. So QM certification is the international standard of excellence for distance learning. The Quality Matters rubric consists of 42 specific review standards in 8 categories that have been researched and proven to improve student experience and produce quality course design. The review process includes a development team, the development team, 3 additional peer reviewers, of which at least 1 must be external to the college. So an external reviewer has to review this course. And once it's given the thumbs up, QM certification symbols are granted, and St. Louis Community College will display this symbol on our certified courses of record to indicate to students and potential students the quality design of these courses. Lastly, on this slide, speaking to engagement, we've integrated Panopto, a video streaming, recording, and storage program that enables our development teams and all faculty to more quickly and easily create videos and engagement within the distance classroom while ensuring accessibility standards are met. The software also provides a path for students to use the technology to create and record videos for presentations, speeches, oral responses to discussion questions, and more, reducing the sense of isolation that can sometimes occur in distance learning and adding presence to the classroom. Training for this software is scheduled for January, so folks can learn how to use it. During the fall term, Soft Chalk and Class Teams was integrated into Blackboard. Both of these programs provide easy to use intuitive interfaces for content development and classroom interaction and require minimal training for faculty to implement fully into their processes. As faculty are encouraged to use these programs, an emphasis is placed on their use with our course development teams to facilitate the creation of interactive content for learning activities, as well as both formative and summative assessments. Where faculty are concerned, well-prepared and enthusiastic faculty are crucial to the distance learning environment. Instructional strategies must be adapted for distance teaching, and a fresh perspective on communicating teaching without the benefit of visual cues can be daunting for a new instructor, new online instructor. Online education is committed to supporting our faculty and works to ensure that in addition to the daily support it is committed to providing, we work to ensure faculty are trained and offer professional development opportunities that are readily available. To ensure appropriate training is available, we created training courses in response to the new LVL format. The board's probably keenly aware that as we went into last spring and summer, we started offering courses in a live virtual lecture. Online education had to quickly prepare training at faculty members' request to be able to do this well. And they did that. This training and many of the other trainings created by online education are available 24/7 for faculty to find when the need arises. Professional development. 136 faculty members have been certified in quality matters since July 1st. Moving forward, training has been completed to allow us to facilitate additional quality matters courses, not just the QM rubric, but we're going to offer an alternative training course that was just approved by the College Governance, recommended by the College Governance Council in December. Beyond the training, this spring, online education is implementing a book club. And the book club, online education book club, is going to start with the book Small Teaching Online, Applying Learning Science in Online Classes. This club will provide a collaborative professional development experience for faculty addressing distance learning practices. The first book explores small teaching components in course design, communication, and motivation for both students and instructors. That's hot off the presses. So where students are concerned, students in distance learning courses can feel isolated from the college if it's not intentional in how we engage. We need to have continuous connections. So online education has developed a communication plan and works with marketing each semester to send targeted email messages to online and live virtual lecture students at critical times before and during the semester to ensure students are aware of our resources and support. We've also worked with the registrar's office to create an automated process whereby emails are generated during the registration periods to students taking LVL or online classes to ensure they are informed about requirements, resource needs, and expectations of these instructional modalities and how to prepare for class. So the student doesn't come into an online class unaware of what the requirements and needs are going to be for that sort of modality. Additionally, online education hosts monthly meetings with students via webinar technologies where they answer questions, solicit feedback, introduce students to available campus resources. Each month at these meetings, online education collaborates with another college partner to make a brief presentation and allow students to ask questions, become more familiar with the services. During the fall term, online education was joined by academic support and tutoring, counseling, library, and advising for these open sessions. Online education team members meet regularly with various student support services to ensure online students' needs are highlighted and the needed resources are made available and that students are aware of them. Academic support. Online education meets regularly with academic support and tutoring to facilitate the engagement with distance learners. During the summer and fall terms, tablets and other technologies from online education resources were provided to the academic support and tutoring instructors to help facilitate high levels of interaction during these tutoring sessions. Another exciting development is that online education worked with Wildwood's president during the hiring of an academic support and tutoring manager, which now has a shared responsibility to oversee academic support for the online campus. Online Ed conducted a survey of faculty for students' needs, asking what I wish every student knew the first day of class. And as a result, brief video tutorials over a myriad of topics are being created and posted with 24/7 availability. We've restructured the student information pages in Blackboard to make support options more prominent and are reworking the student support tabs in our course templates so that students may more easily access these resources while participating in online and LVL courses. So the last slide here, and so just there's needs to continue to do this work and to expand it. So just want to make the board aware. As we move forward, building a strong foundation for our distance learning programs, there's continued need for support and resources. By focusing on quality content development for our course development projects, we also focus on developing the 3 pillars of distance learning, which, as a reminder, were content, faculty, and students simultaneously. So there's a few items on this slide. I won't read them, but these are, some of them are positional, some of them are support for faculty. When we release faculty to lead these development teams, there's a cost associated with that. To do quality course design, we need some folks with technical skills. Some of these positions are related to that. And we want to make sure that we have exceptional support services for our students, both on campus and online. So that's what the last item is about. I moved pretty quickly through those slides. And I know we have a limited amount of time for our engagement tonight, so I will be happy to do my best to answer the trustees' questions over these topics.
Andrew, thank you. I wrote 3 notes down just to make sure I remember what I asked. So I appreciate the effort on open access and really trying to lower textbook costs. I know sometimes our students are spending more on the textbook than they are for the class itself. And certainly that is an issue as we think about how do we navigate academic freedom while still balancing, good selection for our students that is not costing them twice as much. So I appreciate that effort. The other thing is certainly, when you talk about online courses, it's forced us to move a little bit faster in some of that area, just given COVID. And certainly as someone who teaches at one of our neighbor institutions, course of record and the shell seem very familiar to me, and the lead faculty member and all of that. And certainly it helps make sure there's some consistency. And I think that's important, just to make sure that our students are experiencing a consistent framework across the board while still having teachers or professors being able to do their own twist on the class and delivery method, but certainly allowing the shell to be the same, because otherwise, if I'm one professor and someone else is another professor, they're not having the same learning outcomes. And I think it's important that our students are getting the same thing. The last thing I would like us to push on is the grade thing, which I think the board talked about, as you pointed out before. Obviously, this board unanimously passed the equity resolution, I'll call it. And certainly, I think it'd be interesting, I know Lucy can chime in as well, but to provide some information on the demographic breakdown of grades as well to our faculty members, to see the breakdown of how our students of different races and genders are performing in their classes as well. To me, I think it's important that we put at the forefront that we're looking at how are some of our race and genders performing in classes, and to bring that to the forefront of faculty to examine their own biases, to be able to look at and expand wide range. And sometimes just putting the data out there just starts conversations and reflection. Of course, I know these are not part of the evaluation, they're just for conversational pieces. And so I think as this board, like I said, supported the equity resolution, I certainly can't imagine we wouldn't support having conversations around race and grades and looking at how our students are performing, just to see out there and have those conversations. And so I would push us to look at if there's any legal implications for that, but certainly if not, to have some conversations when we're meeting with department chairs about just looking at how our students of different ethnic backgrounds are performing, or different genders, and seeing how they're doing in classes, to start conversations around is the curriculum and delivery methods matching what our students need today across the board? And so would really just push us to think about that, to add that layer into the conversation in the future. Obviously, I know the ones that you're getting ready to disperse are already out there, but certainly to give time for Lucy and others to gather some legal opinions to really have that conversation, because I think that's how change is going to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Martin.
I just thank you for the presentation. Very helpful. Looks like a real methodical process to put a quality product together. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Larson.
I too want to thank you for your excellent presentation, Andrew. And I just put on my Facebook, online education progress, St. Louis Community College, the place to be.
Thank you, Trustee Graham. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It's Annie. I'm wondering, is there going to be some sort of a metric for so we get the data of particular courses being successful or not successful. If there are a preponderance of students that are not doing well in a particular class, what's the accountability piece? What happens then if these folks are not, if they're not finishing the courses, or how are we going to address that with all of this?
Thank you, Trustee Marshall. If I'm understanding the question correctly, this is the first topic on sharing the student course success data with the faculty and what. So we went into this with the belief that we have faculty are professionals, and that we will provide this data and the awareness will affect change. Okay. And we want to do this in the most formative way. So that's why even almost like being aware you're going to have a physical coming down the road. So you maybe want to get in shape before the physical. This first go around, we're just going to provide the data so folks can have a look at it. And then in a future iteration, we're going to provide it and ask that they have conversation with their department chair or dean about, what they thought about that data. And then the next steps we want to is to plan, start to plan some goals around that for a discipline. Because to move the needle for a course, it's going to take, everybody, trying to make improvement. Mm-hmm. And we haven't really talked a lot about, the what ifs. What if someone isn't, we give the data and someone just doesn't care and they have lousy outcomes and things like that. Because I don't expect that to be the case. Right. What I'm expecting is that, we hire professionals who, when they are aware of it, are gonna, they're gonna want to ask questions and do a good job. And so that's what we're expecting.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do we have another questions? Other questions, or are we ready to move on?
Lucy just commented that she's happy to talk about legal implications. Lucy, I don't know if you want to do that today or another time. Certainly it doesn't need to be today, but I see in the chat, I just want to make sure others saw that. She said she's happy to talk about legal implications with assessing outcomes based on race. It can be very helpful information, so.
Yeah, I think that there's a very full agenda tonight, but I would be happy to talk with any of you individually about it. I do think that there's nothing legally wrong with it, and I think it really can be very helpful in fine-tuning and assuring that we're reaching goals that we have for diversity and reaching all of our students. So
that's a great initial layer, so certainly follow up later. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Okay, it sounds like we're ready to move on to enrollment projections and strategies.
Madam Chair, I think we have one more presentation on retention from Christine Davis, and then we have yet another on enrollment. So we'll turn this over to Christine. We may have to schedule a second workshop. We'll do the best we can to get through this tonight.
Okay.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I will try to move through this quickly. So we've talked about developmental ed and the reforms happening there. Dr. Moore Davis and others have talked about, Dr. Fika has talked about guide pathways and scheduling. And so just wanted to talk to you a little bit from the student affairs side about what we're doing to support students in their academic endeavor. We know that students show up on our campuses with all sorts of concerns, all sorts of issues. And so over the last year, I've really spent some time with the team working on finding ways that we can help support our students to ensure that they stay in their courses, stay enrolled, remain enrolled, and eventually complete. So some of this you've already heard me talk about, but really building a comprehensive set of wraparound services. You all have requested that as well from Student Affairs. And so you just need to know that this is ongoing work. Some of this we're doing, some of it is in progress. But I would like to see us have support and advocacy centers on all of our campuses. We have a lot of things like childcare, things like the food pantry that you've heard me talk about, other things like that are happening on our campuses. But what we don't have is a sort of a suite of services that are on our campuses where our students can go to a one-stop shop for support services, for wraparound services, and they can get all their needs met. So that is something that is in the works that I'm working with the team on to ensure that our students are well supported. We are in the process of creating new reporting for faculty and staff so that they can identify students who are in trouble, students of concern, and that can get those to the right people so that we can respond appropriately. Basic needs assistance is another area. We know that if students are hungry, we know that if students are in need of those basic services, that they're not going to be successful in our classes. So, our faculty can try to engage with them, but if they're not there, if they're worried about other concerns, we want to make sure that we help to take care of that as well. You also know that we've hired a full-time person to help support childcare, help connect really students to that grant that we have, the C Campus grant. So I'm excited to say that person started January 4th, and she will be moving, Wendy Williams is her name, and she will be moving between the Forest Park campus and the Flo Valley campus. And her goal is to really connect students with those childcare services. Of course, when we have our facility at Forest Park, we'll have that opportunity for students as well. But for now, she is going to help connect students to those services that are available on our campus at Flo Valley and in the surrounding community as well. I am proposing that we hire social worker positions, like Dr. Perkins said, Paul, cover your ears, because I think that the needs of our students are so basic that we need to have some folks on our campuses who are equipped to respond. And that may mean, looking at current positions and moving some things around. It may mean asking for new positions in the, in the budget process. But I would like to see us have some social workers on our campuses that can respond and serve students in that way. I've discussed before a student engagement framework. I feel that in my previous experience, I feel that students who are engaged on our campuses are going to want to stick around. I know that there are those students who come, take classes and leave because they have to work, but there are some things that we can do to create sticky spaces on our campuses. Campus life is primed for that. And so this is the framework that we've put together. Again, I believe I've shared this with you all at a previous meeting, but wanted to reiterate that here, that is part of, what we're doing to engage with our students to ensure that they remain on our campuses and remain engaged with their advisors, their faculty, and so on. A first year experience is a new program that I would like to see developed here. So this is me proposing that. It is a first year experience, Dr. Perkins, I think you teed it up nicely. You said that this is, my slide not moving?
No, it's not.
Okay. Muha, can you, on my end, I'm seeing that it's moving.
No, it's not moving on this end.
Okay. I swap.
Okay, now try. Yeah, there you go. Now it's moving.
All right. Sorry about that. I'm having all kinds of technology challenges today. Is it Monday still? Okay, so first year experience is it does not currently exist at the college, but what it is sort of that, that middle area where the students come in, but they're not quite ready to be let off on their own. They need a lot of support throughout that first year. And so for the first time, we're going to be in this spring semester, we're going to be embedding tutors, peer tutors in that Smart Start course. So we're going to be piloting that. And the idea here is that those students in that Smart Start course will have somebody, a peer in their class who they can turn to if they're having challenges. So these are experienced students. We're going to pay these students through federal work study programs, and the federal work study program, if they're not work study eligible, we'll find other funds to pay them. But I'm excited to see what this could look like. The guided pathways work really talks about really supporting that student that first semester, that first year really. And so I will bring more information to you as this develops, but just know that we'll be piloting that this spring with those, embedding those peer mentors in those courses. And then finally, as far as supporting students during that first semester, this is actually a strategic initiative that's a partnership with our diversity office and student affairs, where we'd like to have 50 students start in our summer semester. So these would be students who are not necessarily college ready, but we could have them start over the summer. And so they would have a leg up and hopefully, get through that summer, and then in the fall semester be ahead of the game. So they're not starting behind. So whether that first semester is having them take the Smart Start course or the a Dev Ed course, something like that, we're still working through that. But the Guided Pathways Committee will be looking at that to see if this is something that we can fund in the next year. So we have had conversations with our foundation to talk about funding, and there is some potential opportunities here that we could fund this program for our students. So it would be wonderful to get 50 students a head start. Lots of other colleges do have summer bridge programs, and so we're certainly not reinventing the wheel. We can just look at what's working, look at what's worked, and hopefully get 50 students started. It would be great if this was something that we could focus on our students of color. Because we know that there are some students who just need that extra support that first semester, that first year. And so just know that this is something that we are looking at having conversations about. And that is the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Christine, thank you so much. We listened to the ACT folks talk about some of these programs, so I'm really glad that we're delving into those. I think it's just really critical to our success and our student success. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that and say, I feel for Paul, finance person, but Paul, we all love you. It's just, the money person is always the easy person to blame because they're the ones who always say no, but I know you always do a great job at finding money or resources. So appreciate that, and certainly know things cost money to do things. And certainly as we can kind of navigate and see, I know Paul certainly supports all of our efforts to do what's best for kids or students. Sorry, transitioning from my day job. What's best for our students. And, it's not easy, and sometimes we just don't have the resources, but when we have the resources, I'm excited to see about social workers being added and wraparound services. And I really appreciate more than anything that we are taking feedback from our meetings and from what our students are saying we need, and turning it around in a rapid speed to provide services, because our students are changing faster than ever before, and their mental health needs are through the roof compared to what they used to be. And so I'm glad to see we're trying to create a well-rounded experience and having lots of projects going on. Certainly, our strategic plan must be very detailed within all the 4 goals, because there's a lot of work going on, but it's all important work. And so I appreciate all the effort and the responsiveness to the trustees, as well as to ultimately our students. So I appreciate all that.
Okay.
I'll just say here.
Yes, really. It's very exciting. Okay. Are we, any other comments or questions?
I just have one last comment. You know, with the knowing that we're going to have a new space created at Forest Park, I hope that we will be able to create space for, you know, what we've kind of just kind of bantered around the Family Resource Center, of really making that like what it should look like. You know, some of us have kind of talked about all the different things that actually could be there. And I think that would be, we should discuss that in a more formal situation, you know, and put down some of the goals that we'd like to, you know, some of the resources that we'd really like to see there, and make it a model of what it could be. But really work on that. That's a community that could be greatly served by the amount of help that we could give to our students and their families. It's very exciting, and I'm really excited about the social workers and all the wonderful things that we've got going on. Thank you for all of this, Dr. Davis.
There are a number of really good family resource centers in the region. Probably, you know, places to learn from and think about, you know, what would that be like if we were going to make it more aimed maybe at our particular student population, but the services are pretty well laid out.
Right. Okay. Well, are we ready to go on to enrollment?
We are ready.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Board of Trustees and Dr. Pittman and guests. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to start to share my screen. Make sure I can do this right. I need the glasses for reading, not for seeing. So, let's see. And come around. And let's go. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Enrollment goals for student affairs. Thank you all for joining, allow me to join you all this evening. I know we had a meeting last year around this time. We were able to talk about goals and projections. Thank you for smiling, Dr. Martin. And so this is an update to that. And so I want to kind of keep going and give you all where we're at right now, or how we're moving forward. Great. Muhai says is not responding. Oh.
No, we can hear you fine.
You can hear me, but I can't. It's not letting me move my presentation. It's almost like it's shutting down now.
Try to unshare it and then share it again.
All right. Sorry, guys. Share. Muhai, oh, stop sharing. I see it now. Stop sharing. Yeah, no. Okay, hopefully.
Try closing your PowerPoint as well and then reopen the file. Your PowerPoint probably frozen.
It's not moving. I'm even frozen. Everybody's frozen. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's not. And all my screens are now frozen.
I can see it through board docs.
Can you?
Doesn't do much. I can, here, let me see if I can share my screen.
Okay.
Can everyone see? Perfect.
I see the screen. Mhm.
Can't see the screen.
So it's the goal one.
Let
I'm on
me
the goal
see.
Year one enrollment goals.
Yes.
Comparison.
Did I? It's not. This is not good. Ruha, anything else you can tell me to help out with?
At this point, if everything is frozen, you would have to reboot and we would have to take a 5-minute break if that's what the board is okay with.
I think I can do it in maybe 2 minutes. Let me try.
Okay.
Virginia, do you want me just to go through the data and then you can make comments?
I think she's muted.
You know, she rebooted already.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, I'm just gonna talk. Kevin, can you please, Dr. Martin, roll those slides for me? I'll shake my head or something. So last year when we met, we discussed the enrollment goals. And so I wanted to list because that was year one. I provided you all with year 1, year 3, and then year 5. And so looking at the enrollment goals, not yet, I'm sorry. Looking at the enrollment goals for fall 2020, and then actually what we actually did, I wanted to let you all know we didn't make it. We tried our best. You know, we had a couple things happen like a pandemic, but that was not going to stop us. So we were not that far off from our enrollment goals. We continue to strive and try to get those students. So that's where we were with our year 1 enrollment goals as we projected them. And so versus to what we actually had. Now I'm ready, Dr. Martin. So what we decided to do is because we think we were on a good path, a good trail with all the things, some of the things that we had put in place. We've decided to take our year 2 goals and make them our year 1 goals. Even though we were down in enrollment by 12%, we still want to try to make that happen for us in the college because it was a goal we were working toward. And so our year 2 goals, our year 1 goals are now our year 2 goals. And then we're looking at a 3% increase for year 3 and then for year 5. So this is based off of the student type. You've got our continuing, our reentry, our transfer, first time visiting, dual enrollment, and dual credit. You'll see with the dual enrollment and dual credit, because of some of those processes, we've combined some of those numbers to look at just the high schools alone. But these are the numbers that we're striving for as we work for our goal 2, which will be this fall semester. And I'm sorry, this next screen is so small. But what we did was we took what our actual numbers were for the fall, and we did kind of the same thing for year 2. We got a fall 2021, but we're doing an increase from what we have for this fall for the first year by 5%. Working with Elizabeth and her team to try to enhance those numbers. And so what we've got are our type high schools, actual numbers that we got for the fall semester. We're projecting out what we want to get for the new fall semester, which is fall 2020 versus what we actually did do for the 2020 for this fall versus the 2021, I'm sorry, year that's coming up. Our spring numbers, we don't have those yet. We're still registering, as you would have seen in the previous slide. So we have to increase those based off of what we had projected for last year. So these are the numbers for high school students that we're working toward. And this includes our dual enrollment and our dual credit students together. I couldn't provide a breakout of those by dual enrollment and dual credit when we provide this PowerPoint. I'll make sure you all get those so you can see how they work out individually. But this is how they are per high school. Okay. Just wanted to kind of share with you the profiles of our students from fall to spring, and just typically basically how they all line out. We get our enrollment numbers, about 51% enrollment numbers come from our continuing students. Another 7.5 we get from our first time, 13% for returning. We get about 8.5% for transfer, a little less than 2% for visiting, and a total of about 8.5% make up our high school students, which are our dual enrollment and dual credit. So before I told you we were going to, our goal is to make this goal for the 2020 that we didn't get for 2020. We want to make that up for the 2021. And so our strategies behind that is we're going to recruit as one college. We need to work on retaining the students that we bring in. We also need to we're going to be doing some student focus groups, as well as taking the information that we've already received from some of the student focus groups. We've had an opportunity to send out some phone calls to those students who were actually registered for the fall semester, got all the way through, and did not attend. So we've also did phone calls for those students and gotten their feedback as to what we can do for next steps to assist those students. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. We want to make each inquiry and potential student feel special. I think one of the things we're going to be working on as we talk about, or when we incorporate the new CRM, is that we will be able to focus on student types, along with we will now have a real platform that will bring us inquiries, as well as we'll know who our potential students are from different events. So we want to make sure that we're customizing and we're making them feel special, whether that is sending out our first time in college students a welcome gift or welcome bag. We've got a lot of students who have expressed interest by doing applications for the fall. We've already got 1,000 students who've done applications for the fall. And so we're working on keeping those students engaged, because August is a long time now for January. And so we're planning out different events and having those conversations to make sure that we're keeping those students engaged as we bring them in and they do their applications. We're also doing communication based on the students' needs and as well as the student type. So the first time in college student will not get the exact same welcome letter as that returning student or the transfer student, or even our high school students that are coming in. Those will be customized to what their needs are and what it is they need to bring in and how we work with those students. We're also customizing recruitment methods. We're going to track, and we're tracking now and building metrics, so we'll know what we need to improve on. We'll know what works, as well as a new CRM for the admissions and the recruiting staff. And as you all know, we got that new application that will be coming hopefully in March is the goal now. We're trying to work to get to that point. Okay. The new district-wide recruiting team. Prior to this, each campus had their own, recruiting team. We found ourselves bumping into each other, fighting sometimes for the exact same students. And so what we want to do is, when we talk about a one college, we wanted to put together a district recruiting team, and that recruiting team consists of a director. We have coordinators, and each one of those coordinators has been assigned an actual student type. So we have a recruiting coordinator that will be taking care of just the first time in college students. We have a recruiting coordinator that will be doing international and our veteran students. And by that, I don't mean that those will be the only students that they're working with. They will be the ones that will be going out and coming back with those opportunities for our international students. So for instance, for one of the international students, one of the things we did is we got to work with the, I think it was Hispanic, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. That was an opportunity that we had to go out and kind of work with that particular group for internationals students. We've got a group that will focus together on African-American initiatives, our adult learners, our returning students, as well as our visiting students. So there's now a team of those people. Student target, again, this is what we're looking at. We've got somebody for dual enrollment, dual credit, veterans and international, selective admissions. Those are our specialty programs. So we know we have students that want to come in and be a nurse, but they can't start off being a nurse. And so we want to make sure they understand what that enrollment path looks like coming in. We've also got our online students that we'll be working specifically with. And we'll be partnering with academic affairs to make sure we're blending those services as we reach to those students. Our transfer students, as well as our reentry, and then our new first-time students. And we also have that population of 9-degree students that we'll be working with. And then combined, we will be working as a team to make sure we're working again with the minority groups, specifically African-American male, our traditional, non-traditional students, as we talk about adult learners. And then those students who are just here to take one course, we'll be working with those students to see if we can transition them into students who are actually here to take and get a degree at St. Louis Community College. Part of this is also being proactive with things that we have already identified as points of conversion. And so in the enrollment process we've got built, there are several points of conversion that we can do prior to the student actually starting classes, student affairs. So there's an application conversion rate. And so this is where our recruiters will come in. They'll be working the number of students and inquiries who complete the application. So we know now 37% of our students who do the application actually convert over to students who attend. And so we work to increase that conversion rate for our applications. This also includes, we'll be working with those students who have done inquiries, as well as students who have not come through. So they have enrolled in the first week, they were either dropped for non-payment, they were dropped because they didn't attend. Those are people now that we have a recruitment team that will be going back to reach out to those students to see how we can get them back in classes. So for instance, for the spring semester, they're reaching out to those students who were registered in the fall. And the conversation kind of looks like, hey, Regina, we saw that you were actually in Math 101 for the fall semester. We're offering that course actually now for the spring semester. And they're equipped with the times and dates of those classes. So then they'll be able to assist that student, hopefully with getting that application and getting them back in. We've also moved to a caseload model for admissions. So the number of students who come through the recruiting funnel and have not completed their documentation, the admissions staff now reaches out to those students to help them with getting those transcripts in. If there's difficult conversations that they have to have with other schools to get transcripts, we're offering those types of services as well. Placement testing, we're making sure we know the number of students who need to take placement tests, and we're actually measuring the turnaround time. Does it take somebody 2 days to get in to take a test, or can they actually make that appointment the exact same day? As you all are full aware, advising is also doing caseloads. And we want to know how many of those students who go through the advising tunnel actually register after speaking to an advisor. So how much are we actually helping our students to get in our classes once they have those conversations? And along with that, financial aid is also doing a metric so that we can see how many students apply for aid, how many are eligible, and what time does it actually take? How long does it take a student to be awarded aid? Because that's important. We don't want them waiting 3 or 4 days if we can get it done the exact same day. Even if they're selected for verification, which is when they have to bring their taxes in, as well as when they're not, and they're not selected for verification. One of the things I also want to highlight is just like recruiters are working certain populations of students, so are our admissions. So our admissions are now working with students based off of student type, and so is financial aid. So as they run into students with different issues, if I'm one of those recruiters or advisors in admission, I know exactly who to send that person to that's working with our new and first-time students in financial aid so they can give them the help that they need. So we're partnering across student affairs in our service areas to make sure we're handling students off, handing them off in the right way. Okay. Again, we're going to be tracking for process improvements and proactive communication. I kind of talked about retention enrollment rate. Again, that's the number of students who enroll but withdraw before the second week of classes. So we're reaching out to them. We're making sure that we keep them engaged. There's a group of students that you all know get dropped for non-payment. This is the number of students who enroll but never pay or set up a payment plan or apply for financial aid. We're now reaching out to those students proactively. In the admissions office, they already know on their report who's applied for financial aid and who hasn't. And then they can communicate with financial aid to say, we've got this student, making sure that we're reaching out to them as well. If they're having conversations with students and they know exactly who to send that student to. And we're also sending out information from the financial aid office for everybody who has done a FAFSA in the college to make sure that we can reach them to get them to actually make the payment and stay in classes. They're having discussions about scholarship opportunities that can help students bridge the gap between tuition and any other needs that they could possibly be having. And also there's a drop for non-attendance. So we want to keep our students engaged to make sure that once we got them registered, that they actually do attend classes and they have the tools and the books and things that they need. As I talked about our recruiting team, one of the things I spoke about was we're going to have to build new relationships. And maybe I didn't say it, but I meant to. So we'll be working with community-based organizations like the Urban League. As you all know, it was the recruiting team and the admissions teams that were participating in the food drives with the Urban League this time around. We've done our own food drives. We've done the Ferguson Youth Initiative. We've done things with them as far as when it was Halloween, we got out there and helped them hand out different baskets or whatever they've got. So we are making those connections with the community-based organizations so they're aware of what it is we're doing. We're now in the middle of a grant that we just started with the Covenant House. St. Louis graduates, we meet with them on a regular basis to determine what it is we can do to help our students be successful. Again, I spoke about the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They have a leadership institute in which we're able to come in and present to those students, high school students, so they'll know what it is we're offering. So we're working at building those types of relationships. Individuals with the Pride of St. Louis are also groups that we're working with. We also have been invited to the homeschool consortium. They've got a platform where they will be doing different workshops and things like that. So we will be a part of that, helping them to understand what it is we do at St. Louis Community College and how we can focus with them as a team. I talked about customizing community outreach. And so some of the activities we'll be doing is we will be continuing working with marketing and communication on the outreach plan. That makes sure that we get the messages out to the right students at the right time. We're collaborating with workforce solution groups. So one of the things we talked about was the Covenant House. This is also an opportunity for us to build on a grant, but also assist students. Short-term scholarships for short-term certificates and selective program options. So as we look at our students that are in our certificate programs, making sure that we've got those short-term scholarships that will help them be successful. We also believe that once we start the winter intersession courses, that's going to be a big pull for recruiting, as well as we've had students ask about taking those classes during the winter time. Again, I talked about collaborating with the African and Male Initiative programs. I do know that Campus Life is building on that. And so we want to be a part of that to make sure whatever those focus groups look like, and we're assisting with getting the word out and pulling the students into programs that they actually find interesting. I know we have programs that we offer, but also asking the students, what are the programs that you would like to see as an African-American male? What does that look like? All the degrees, making sure that if we can reach out to them and get them what it is they would like to take is also an important part of that. We're going to be developing a stronger collaboration with faculty and other staff team members, our online education people, our deans, are our allies. They help us when we do these fairs. They come out, they talk to the students, and they also talk to students who are entering their program. All of that is a big pull when we talk about how we outreach and recruit students. We've been doing a lot of virtual drop-in sessions. So students and high school counselors are able to come in, meet with somebody, and we can talk to them about our programs and where it is they want to be. Along with, we're in the process of working with IT now to build what are actual virtual tours. So students can come on the website and actually see what the new medical building looks like. They'll be able to see what classrooms we're offering and what the labs and all of that look like. So we think that the virtual tools will also be a big push, and that's coming within the next year as well. recruiting events by student types and specialty areas. So for our traditional and non-traditional students, we're going to have our application days, our mobile enrollment, our A+ nights, preview days. High schools, we're going to be able to do some outreach with them as well. And so we will be definitely working with our returning adult scholarships as well. For our dual enrollment and dual credit activities, we'll be developing, again, that a shared school visit calendar, so that we'll know, and as well as our dual credit partners know who's going where, how we're pulling those students in. Again, a collaboration with them, as well as our recruitment and outreach team. New marketing pieces, basically promoting the Make It Count program, which is a new program for those particular students. And again, a great homeschool convention. We're already scheduled to be a part of that March 25th through the 27th. So we will be presenting there as well. Thank you. As you heard several of us talk tonight, we know our minority students are something that we really need to focus on. And so we will again be partnering with people like the Urban League, Employment Connections, Family and Father Support Centers, to make sure if we're able to connect so they'll know what it is we offer. We want to bring in guest speakers so that they can sit down and meet with our African American students or our minority and unrepresentative groups, so they'll know, get an idea of where we are, how they can start, and how they can be successful. Motivational speakers as well. And then also looking at the scholarship dollars that we offer and how we can assist those students with those scholarship dollars. I know the CARES funding that we got from the Department of Ed was a lifesaver for those students this year. We've been able to give a lot of that out, but we need to also be able to continue to help our students matriculate through the academic process. For the transfer students, we've again got preview days. For our transfer students, we want to highlight our Core 42. We want to let them know that that's an option for them if they're transferring in and they're going to be leaving out. We want to try to pull them in that way so that we can keep those students. We'll also be looking at the last chance grant for those students. So there's opportunities for them to be able to, again, afford to be in college while they're taking their courses. Our specialty programs, we want to collaborate with the deans of the health science programs. We have a recruiter that's, like I said, that's specifically assigned to these programs and these groups, so the students know what that enrollment funnel looks like. Enhancing a partnership with the healthcare providers and other organizations, and as well as application goals and program goals growth. So we'll be looking at all of those. International students, you'll see some of the same things that we're going to be doing for all of those, but we'll be able to actually develop a better communication plan with our international students, as well as our veteran students through the new CRM, to make sure that they're aware of what that process looks like, they're not lost. The specialty about these two groups is that they need different things when they register for classes. That are not necessarily the same that everybody else will need. So for our international students, some of them will need visas, but not all of them. So making sure that they don't just get one blanket statement that says you need visas. These will actually be customized based off of what the student actually needs, and not just a lump of information. And so they will not hopefully get confused through that process. Our veteran students, I don't think we celebrate them enough. And so we'll be doing things as we transfer career fairs. Again, looking at veterans campus visit days. And so we'll be doing some special things for that particular group, as well as looking at scholarship opportunities and making sure that their benefits are processed in a timely manner so they too can attend classes and have their materials in time. Online students will be collaborating with the online education. Again, preview days, Core 42. We will also be working with those students who were admitted and not enrolled. They got in on the online platform. They didn't attend for whatever reason. So we will also be reaching out with those students to see if we can get them back in. And then lastly, our non-degree seeking and visiting students. these are students that come to us, they just want to take one class. Well, we're going to work on converting them to degree-seeking students. We want them to get their degrees or certificates with us. We want them to start off knowing that we have various options in that one class that they took. Again, selling to them and trying to get them to understand the core 42. So if you start with us, you can actually transfer to a 4-year institution and not just take classes that again will not be able to transfer, but getting them to take classes that they actually can transfer to another institution. Customizing again their services and notifications.
Regina, that's all of them. One thing I wanted to point out just for the trustees.
Okay. All right. So
can you hear me? Sorry.
All right. Yes, I can hear you.
I just want to say one thing I want to point out that I think is really a good number to look at is our dual enrollment numbers. Although other areas maybe went down, dual enrollment to me is better than dual credit because that means they're coming to our campuses, they're being taught by our professors, and you just see the increase of what our goal was 492 and our actual was 766. So when you look at our dual enrollment, although I'll do our credit didn't make it, I care a great deal about dual enrollment. Sorry, my dog is craving all my attention right now. But I just want to point that number out, though. I think it's a really big number that we've grown over the years pretty rapidly. And so I appreciate that large over the goal number. So something to celebrate, certainly.
Some of our students, I'm getting there, Elizabeth. Some of our students are taking both courses. So we will have some students that are dual enrollment and dual credit. We combine those. We have some that come into us that's going to be dual credit and they take dual enrollment. So yes, we share that population, which is why when I did the projections, I tried not to break them out too much because they come in for one thing and we have some that can't get dual credit because the high school won't pay. And so they decide to do something different, like take a class on their own, even though they've got to get that permission. There's not a fee assessed that the high school has to look at. So then they do transfer into dual enrollment students.
Gina, I have to say, this was really excellent, easy to understand, and very pointed, and we can look at exactly who we're targeting. Could you talk for just a minute about the veterans? What age group are we talking about, and what generally are they coming, what kind of courses are they coming in for?
A lot of our veterans are coming in under developmental ed courses. The ages, if I remember right, there are 25 and older. So they're an older population, typically within their 30s. A lot of our veteran students also come to us with sometimes with challenges as it relates to where they may have served at, just different types from the military. They may come to us with some different issues that we are helping them get through to get them in the right classes. We're working with academic affairs with giving them the credit for the courses that they took while they were in the military. So that also assists with where they start off at. I don't know if that totally answered your question. And I'm sorry, I don't have all of the information, but I can get that for you.
I just kind of wondered, are they coming in for like to become police officers, or, you know, are there things that they're like, or is it high tech? I mean, or it's just across the board?
I think it's across the board, but I would also say there's a lot of them that are getting into the IT and medical fields because those are things that they did while they were actually in service.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your presentation. Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have other comments for Regina or questions?
Again, thanks for all the efforts. Certainly, it wasn't as bad as we originally projected possibly enrollment to be this year within the pandemic. So certainly appreciate the creative ways of using our CARES funds to support our students and figuring out ways to navigate this new way of teaching and learning. And I imagine our online campus will continue to grow just because some students that really works for, and they've maybe never would have came to us before and would have went to a 4-year institution for 3 or 4 times the price. So hopefully they'll stick with it and stay at STLCC for graduation, which we'll have again in person, hopefully this year.
Absolutely. And thank you all for your support with me and the team in Student Affairs. We really appreciate it. I would say last time around it was a little rough, but it was definitely a learning experience. And it motivated me to motivate the staff. So I did appreciate that. Thank you.
One last thing, Pam, I'm done, I promise. I really appreciate also the reorganization going on in Student Affairs to focus on students first, one of our core values. And so I'm looking forward to that actually playing out and seeing what it's going to look like. And I know change is hard for folks, but it's certainly something that needs to align to organic pathways and all the other work. So I'm excited to see the full, I know Dr. Moore Davis is also working on it overall from Student Affairs, just seeing the reorganization, repurposing of positions to really align what's best for students today. So thank you for everyone's work and everyone's open-mindedness to change.
And I would just like to say that in the future, we'll probably be getting together with Dr. Christine Davis about the Family Resource Center, because I know we're all very, very excited about that. So, okay, and if there's nothing further, I think it's time for us to leave this room, this Zoom room.
We'll see everyone next week anyway, so how exciting.
Okay, all right. We'll see y'all next
Very,
Tuesday.
very productive. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Kimberly.
I'm leaving. Where's the leave? L-E-A-V-E. Where is it? Oh, there it is.
See you, Doris.